And now, your feature presentation.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 100th episode of the Untitled Movie Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rorabeck, alongside he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchen.
Did you say what's up every belly?
I love that, I'm perfect over 99 episodes.
Oh,
Eric,
flawless victory.
Never made a mistake once, never had to re-record anything, never had to redo an intro, never had to actually, what is true, none of that is true.
No internet disconnects,
failures, nothing, no problems with the internet or technology or anything ever. One thing I will say is, like, knock on wood, we've never lost a full episode. As I say that, and this will be corrupted, and this will be like just completely the worst episode ever. Your quality will be like 4 pixels. There'll be a big dead pixel in the center of the screen, like our Shang-Chi trailer. Eric, happy 100 or screening. Happy 100 episodes. We're on video, so I'm celebrating with a Mountain Dew Baja Punch special edition.
I'm celebrating with some cold water because I'm still very dehydrated from this afternoon walking around the Toronto area.
It was hot.
It was so hot. And I just kind of, when you've been outside for a period of time and you're just exhausted afterwards, I just feel completely zonked, and like, it's the worst time to feel that way when we're doing our 100th episode. And guess what, guys? We have no plan.
We have absolutely no plan. We're on video. Hey, everybody.
You know what, though?
Hey, wave at the camera, Eric. Hey. We're on video.
Having said that, I have to give you a lot of props, because what you don't see is that Matt over the weekend was literally tinkering with different intros and new graphics and settings, and just kind of rebranding the site as a whole over the last few weeks as well. I mean, you've seen it on our social media, and so it's not that we haven't done anything. We just don't have any real plans for the actual show, which I think actually is fitting in tradition for what this show is. Because if you have listened to any of the 99 episodes previously,
we kind of have a structure, right?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thirdly, I'm so sorry.
And why?
And because usually our show, our minimum length is like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
This will be our shortest episode.
We're literally just gonna die on the vine here. But yeah, it's been one of those things where we probably in the before times would have gotten to our 100th episode sooner,
faster. Yeah.
But given what's going on and how consistent we've been with the Untitled Movie reviews,
please go subscribe. We just put up a Shang-Chi review both on YouTube and podcast services now. Like I said, we're on video, which is like the one big thing that we're kind of doing. Eric mentioned we rebranded everything. That's also a big thing, but YouTube and video. So think of this as like a pilot program or pilot week where we're still tweaking things,
and we don't get picked up.
Some things might mess up. We are planning on consistently doing this and putting things up on YouTube, but I forget what I was saying.
But no, it's still like, even though yes, this is a milestone for the Untitled Movie Podcast.
We would have got there faster.
We would have gotten there faster, but we got there. We're the tortoise in the race. Slow and steady wins the race. 250
plus reviews over on that channel,
right. And we've been more consistent there, and even more so with Untitled Movie Conversations. But those are for special occasions when we can schedule things and get guests and what have you. And we've
Mountain Dew's not good, Eric.
What flavor is it?
It's like a new Baja Punch. It's like a fruit punch Mountain Dew.
You're an early adopter of new technology, and you're an early adopter of horrible trash food. I know you tweeted a little bit about it, but what was your experience like with the mac and cheese Cheetos?
We should have done our first review on video. Should have been a video review of the Flamin' Hot Cheetos mac and cheese, because it was fucking awful. And me, like, I like garbage. Anyways, we're celebrating 100 episodes. We're very grateful for everyone. We would have done this sooner, but like Eric said, we kind of, we took some time off during the pandemic. We did it bi-weekly, sometimes once every 3 weeks, but we are back on a weekly schedule, going to be up on YouTube, going to be up on podcast services every
right in
Monday.
time for TIFF.
It might, yeah, right in time for TIFF. We're going to cover the entire Toronto International Film Festival like we do every year. We're going to have multiple reviews per week in video and podcast format. So yeah, it's more work, yeah, but it's fun. I've enjoyed doing everything, and I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. And it's been we're celebrating our 3rd anniversary, going into our 4th year of this show. But I mean, Eric and I have known each other for a decade now. We've done other podcasts, Movie Monarchy over on Movie Night, which was my old website that I created, as well as Toronto Film Scene podcast for like 1 episode before, we were told we were swearing too much.
Classic.
And, then,
and too long as well.
Us. And too long. Yeah, too long was the other one. Yeah, which we haven't changed.
And you've been on Cinema Scene on Rogers TV plenty of times. I mean, you're going to be on the next episode as the fall preview and TIFF preview. So and kind of funny. I mean, you have been making so many more appearances on Kind of Funny, and have also been bringing Kind of Funny hosts onto this show. And we also thank anybody that we've had on both the conversations and on the regular show.
Anyone who shot us a message. But anyways, back to what's important. Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Thank you, everyone. Flamin' Hot Cheetos mac and cheese. Eric, I love trash foods. I talk about it on social media and other things. I almost think we should just do trash food reviews here on the channel as well. Just add that. Just call it Untitled Movie Reviews, but sometimes we review Mountain Dew Fruit Punch. Flamin' Hot Cheetos mac and cheese was one of the most vile things I've ever tasted in my life. It was disgusting. It was this, like, I love Flamin' Hot, the brand, right? Like, I don't know. Are you a fan of Flamin' Hot, the brand? Do you like a Flamin' Hot Cheeto?
I mean, I like spicy food in general, and I've sort of gained a appreciation over the last, I would say, 10 years or so. In terms of, what I love about spicy food, and I think the big misconception is that it just makes food hot. It actually adds flavor to it. Not that
when done properly. I had really great jerk wings at Harvest in Brooklyn, Ontario, not Brooklyn, New York. And they were great because they were intensely spicy, but like flavorful, which is exactly what you're talking about. Flamin' Hot can be one way or the other. I got a bag of Flamin' Hot Smart Food, like, Smart Food white cheddar popcorn. They had Flamin' Hot Smart Food, excellent. Most Flamin' Hot things, excellent. So I'm like, you know what? I'm a trash person. I need to try Cheetos mac and cheese. What I wasn't prepared for, because like Kraft Dinner is a staple here in Canada, and if you're not Canadian, it's just Kraft macaroni and cheese, but for some reason it's just called Kraft Dinner here.
Well, talking to Tarantino about Kraft Dinner, when I was talking to him at the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sort of press mingle afterwards, he didn't know what I was talking about when I said Kraft Dinner.
No, they wouldn't, right? Because it's just Kraft mac and cheese. If you say Kraft Dinner, people are gonna look like you're like out of your mind. And so Kraft mac and cheese, Kraft Dinner has a specific, flavor profile. In a pinch, I'm not against having a box of KD.
It's not bad. I actually kind of like Kraft Dinner.
So do I. And so I'm like, you know what? It's going to taste like that, but spicy. No, I smelled this thing and it smelled like a bag of Cheetos, which I was not prepared for. Like, Cheeto cheese is much different than a macaroni and cheese KD kind of like thing. And I think it was just like the instant I smelt it, and it's this bright red that most Flamin' Hot products are, which works on like a potato chip, but not on a bowl of pasta. That like it was so disgustingly red. And the smell was so distinctly Cheetos, which I guess makes sense because it's Cheetos mac and cheese. But it's like eating a bowl of wet Cheetos, right? Like, and you like, and you I put one in my mouth and I'm like, this is absolutely disgusting. And there's not many things where I will just flat out be like, I can't eat this. Like I ate 2 noodles and I made Nevis and I made my sister Sarah try one, and we were all like, this is absolutely
But
disgusting.
what about the
So,
taste? Did it taste like Cheetos, or did it have like
yeah,
a
I
weird
mean,
taste? Because it almost sounds like
it had a
part
weird
of
taste, but smelt like Cheetos, but like sort of had that Cheeto. Like if you like literally took the cheese powder off a Cheeto and put it onto wet noodles and it was kind of like, you turned it into a liquid.
because it
Like,
almost sounds like it was less to do with the taste and almost more with like a psychological kind of thing where you're
that's
looking at it
also
and you're
part of it.
thinking
Yeah.
like, when you eat something or you bite into something and it takes you by surprise because you're thinking it's going to taste or be
Yes,
this one way,
absolutely.
and then
When you bite
psychologically,
into something or you take a sip of it's a root beer, but you wanted a Coca-Cola or something,
yeah,
right?
and it
Like or
turns you
something like
off
that.
not necessarily
Yeah.
because it's bad, but because it's not what your mind and body were expecting to
That could be it, because I could
ingest.
have Katie on the mind. So when I went in, I'm like, this is not craft dinner. It's not just spicy craft dinner. So anyways, it was terrible. So welcome to the Untitled Movie Podcast, everyone. Each and every week, Eric and I get together. We talk about the entertainment industry, what we've been watching, what movie trailers are out, what's in the news. We talk about life. We talk about Cheetos. We talk about sodas. I'm out. I don't want to finish this Mountain Dew, so I might have to go get a Coke Zero. So I'll let Eric talk about something in a moment. But if you're new to the show, we just kind of shoot the shit. We're just two best friends who like talking about movies, usually for way too long. Usually these shows are like 2 hours plus. We try to go, oh, we're only going to go an hour. We're only going to go an hour and a half, but we end up talking for a very, very long time. Also, we don't have anything planned for the 100th episode. I just thought we'd talk about, Eric and I have known each other for 10 years. We've been podcasting now what feels like for a long ass time, because like movie night feels like an eternity ago, and that would have been in the early 2000s, because I remember talking about on one of our first episodes Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and we were talking about the news of that they were making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, right?
Yeah, and then we
And
laughed at
like
that because the idea of a talking tree
raccoon
and
and a
raccoon.
raccoon. Yeah, and so we've been doing this for a while, and this is a new iteration of it. I mean, 100 episodes is nothing. Is nothing to shake a what's the saying? I
Shake a
don't
fist
know.
at.
Is that yeah? Like it's still impressive, but
We're still in our infancy, compared to other
yeah,
podcasts that we also like. Podcasts like, I've been listening to Film Junk since
set a
2009.
Guinness World Record.
Yeah,
for
which
the
is the longest running
Yeah.
podcast, and
We'll beat them one day.
No, never. But you look at like a milestone like this for us, and it being an independently produced production, we're still willing to sell out Butterfingers.
Yeah,
We're
Butterfinger, anyone.
yeah,
Mountain Dew. I know I just told you your Baja Fresh was
Flamin'
Baja
Hot
Punch.
Cheetos.
Flamin' Hot Cheetos. I know I just
I
shit
wonder
talked
how
your mac and cheese.
the Eva Longoria
It just wrapped
produced
production. That was a news thing.
biopic is going to compare to your
To the mac and
experience
cheese,
eating the
yeah.
mac and cheese. Although that, I mean, has some interesting controversy because I think the creator of that isn't actually the creator.
Flamin' Hot.
Yeah.
It is Flamin' Hot, which I was just talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's like Flamin' Hot Cheetos. That's what the movie's about. Like, didn't the guy who created it like accidentally, like he just mixed some chemicals or something? And,
Which
like,
I think is how most things are made when it comes to like fast food products or anything that's sort of bagged in grocery stores. Like I feel like Cheetos themselves were just a bunch of chemicals put together, and it's like, oh, it kind of tastes like processed cheese.
Yeah.
But it's really unhealthy for you.
It's awful. Yeah. So yeah, Eric, I thought we'd talk about like
Firehouse Subs. We're gonna talk about Firehouse Subs.
We did go to Firehouse Subs today, and shout out people who are American are probably like, we've had that forever. It's new to Canada.
Don't take this away from us, Americans.
We get things like 10 years after they come out in the US, and then we're like, wow, Firehouse Subs pretty good. And we had that for lunch today, which Eric was introduced to. He was shit talking subs because I was like, I want a sub for lunch.
Well, specifically Mr. Sub. That's what I was shit talking.
No one will get unless you're Canadian.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if it's all around Canada or if it's just like an Ontario thing. Mr. Sub is terrible. Subway.
It's the coffee time
terrible.
of
also
Subway
no
cheese.
one will get that.
Well, that's why people come to this show, for the esoteric references.
Canadian references. Yeah, no, I agree. I got a nice pastrami corned beef sub. It was called a New York steamer or something.
Yeah, it almost sounds like Skinner's version of burgers.
Yeah. You got a nice classic Italian sub. It was
And
delicious.
man, I gotta say, like,
It
I
was
I
good.
don't seek out subs in terms of, like fast food
Yeah.
or like if I'm ordering takeout, but after having this Firehouse sub, like Firehouse sub, if you want to endorse this podcast, please,
Imagine.
please.
Yeah. The
But after that, it like even you said this perfectly. You said that, like, you liked Quiznos, but this is even better than that.
Quiznos, good toasted sub. Firehouse sub, great toasted sub. Everybody. Eric, do you remember we met in the lineup? Let's just go through our history. That's something to talk about on this 100th episode. I don't know if we've talked about it on a show before. I mean, I have a lot of great memories when it comes to movies and the people I met in my life. Like I could tell the whole story about how I met Nevis at the film festival, and it's a great story that I've probably told before. But the way that
Earl
we
Morris
met,
brought you together. The
that is
unknown
true.
known.
Really, it was a canceled screening of another sort of problematic French filmmaker.
You're talking
That
about Xavier Dolan.
yeah,
Tom at the Farm
yeah.
specifically.
Tom at the Farm. I met Nevis. That's a story for another day. Love you, Nevis. Thank you for all your support. You're amazing.
Woo, Nevis.
Eric and I, we met in the lineup for Drive in 2011, right?
No, it wasn't for Drive. It was for another movie at Ryerson.
Oh, you were going to Ryerson, and we talked about Drive.
Yes, because you had gone to Comic-Con and saw
But am I
Drive.
correct that it was in 2011?
Yes. Yeah, because
So
that's
10
how
years. That's pretty wild too.
Yeah, because that's how I remember it, because that was the first conversation we had. I was asking you what you thought of Drive, having seen it at Comic-Con, and you were sitting so for people that don't know, during TIFF, Ryerson Theater is one of the main venues, and there's kind of like a garden and a little bit of like a level where you can sit, and you were kind of sitting there,
like
stooped. Yeah. And
probably the best lineup spot at TIFF.
We had a mutual friend, Carl Lachinsky, who introduced us.
Well.
Yes. And so through that, we talked a little bit, and then I cold called you. I think months later.
I remember this very distinctly. Yeah, we talked about Drive in this lineup, and at TIFF you meet tons of people in lineups and talk to people or mutual friends, and I'm thinking I'm never gonna see this fucking chump ever again.
I was just wow. Okay.
Somehow I'm kidding. But somehow I'm sitting in the living room of my parents' house, and I get this call from this random ass number, and I'm like, who the fuck is calling me? And answer it, and you're like, hello? I'm like, hi. You're like, is this Matt Rorabeck? I'm like, yeah. He's like, hey, it's Eric. We met in a lineup at TIFF like a couple months ago, or maybe a month ago. I don't know how long it was. You're like, I do a TV show for Rogers TV. Would you like to come on and be a guest? And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Who is this? And I think that's what happened, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember calling me?
I remember calling you because I needed a guest for the show, and at that point,
I was doing. Where was I writing? Even was it movie night at that point? No.
Or were you doing something for like another
Tribute?
outlet?
Maybe? I was.
No, Tribute was
right
Tribute
before.
Was
later.
Yeah, like it was like
we were already friends because I was sleeping on your couch.
Oh
in
yeah,
underwear. That was when I.
That
met
was
Nevis.
A great story. Where the year that you met Nevis, that you were crashing at my brother Kyle and I had a place, and I remember one morning Kyle and I got dropped off by my stepfather.
I stayed there by myself,
and we walk in.
I'm just in my underwear,
and you're just sprawled out.
It
like
was
this
so
Adonis.
hot. I think, like I think it was so hot. Like, but your brother had a great air conditioner, which was wonderful, and that was the night after I met Nevis. I think because.
And you were burning.
No, I met Adriana
who is also a co-host of Movie Night as well.
Movie Monarchy, who introduced me to Nevis, and I met Adriana that night. So if I didn't stay at your house that night in my underwear, I went out in the rain. I remember to a film. Remember those pub nights that they used to do at the Office Pub, like film critics pub night in Toronto, and very unlike me now being a 32-year-old to want to go talk to a bunch of people I don't know about movies.
You can tell that we're very antisocial.
No, I love everyone we see at screenings and stuff like that. But at that time, you just sat at a bar, got drunk, and talked about movies, and that sounded appealing at the time. and I met Adriana there. But
Well, it's
yeah,
a good
anyways,
way to
back
network, right? Like that
it was. I met my future wife through a connection I made at that pub night. So it was great. Don't get me wrong. And then I was in my underwear and you guys came home. But anyways, back
Kyle
to
and I
we'll
just
get
I
to
just
that.
remember Kyle and I just looked at each other, we're just like
Yeah, I know. That was weird.
But you were burning
just-
the candle at both ends that year. Like I remember you were literally non-stop working for Tribute, doing interviews, and
when
then
you're a spry 24-year-old.
yeah, and then hanging out with Nevis afterwards and going out at night and then like maybe sleeping like 2 or 3 hours. But that was the year where like you did interviews for Blue is the Warmest Color. You did an interview
Don't go look those
with
up.
with you know, for the Lunchbox, which is really a wonderful
Irfan Khan I got to interview, which is
Denny Villeneuve for Enemy, who he really liked your
compliments
shoes.
my shoes. Yeah, I'll always remember that. 2 encounters with Denny Villeneuve, which is there, and he sat beside us at that First Man screening at the Cinesphere.
I talked to him about Maelstrom at the Critics' Choice Award one year, and he was like, "Oh, you're one of the only people that liked that movie."
You know what? Sure. So anyways, Eric called me, asked me to do Rogers TV. And then I think after that is when we started, I started doing your show more regularly. And I was probably doing some sort of movie stuff at that time. Or we just joked about because I was always the movie guy or movie dude.
I
like,
think
that
you
would be
at
my
least
credit,
had the
but-
idea of movie night in,
or I
the
might have been writing here and
process.
there, or like I had Rorabeck Review, which is what I was writing on, like, fucking Tumblr or whatever GeoCities that you would make back in the day. And I had that when I was in college, and hopefully scrub that from the internet, because God, what my opinions were probably back then. And then I just remember, I think it's because I went to TIFF every year, and you were a bigger movie guy than even I was. I mean, I think we're both huge movie people, obviously, and we talk about why we compliment one another on this show, or each other on this show. But I just remember I was going to TIFF every year with Mike Muntz, a friend of mine as well, and I know you went every year, and you would connect with Carl or other people or things like that. So it just made sense for you to give me a shout. And then I forget what the first thing it was Rogers TV. And then I guess I started movie night, and that's when I kind of asked you to contribute or podcast with me, which podcasts weren't even super popular back then. But I mean, they were, but not like what I feel they are now.
They're not
But,
they weren't considered a legitimate resource for content of any kind. Like they were more considered a hobby than anything else, right? Like
and I will say, like, you mentioned Kind of Funny, and shout out to those guys. They've always been, a huge inspiration for me, and like they give me so many hours of entertainment, and they've been so amazing to ask me to come on their shows, and they've come on ours and things like that. Because I remember listening to Greg Miller on because my first passion really was weirdly video games before it was movies. And then I was on IGN all the time, and I listened to their podcast because they got into podcasts really early. So they had a PlayStation podcast, and I was always a PlayStation guy. So I listened to Podcast Beyond, which Greg Miller hosted for the longest time while he was still there. And that was my introduction, and my love for podcasting kind of came from that show and the Lost podcast. So the Lost podcast was the first after show I'd ever listened to, where it was Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof, like after episodes of Lost or a bankable group of Lost episodes, they would go on and talk about them and the Easter eggs and everything and the creation of them and things like that. So I got really into podcasting then, and then that's why we started I started movie night, and I've been trying to break in ever since, and I think we both,
and we're still trying today.
I know, trying to get paid at least consistently, but it's something we really love doing, and I think that's why we've stayed at it. And like I've had many jobs, which again, my film criticism career has like, this is some huge thing, like, oh, my career, it's 100 episodes of a podcast, whatever. But
I mean, you've been doing work within the industry and the specific.
This is my most proud thing I've ever done, is these shows that we've done. Like, and I'm saying, like, we've both grown as critics and film journalists, or whatever you want to call us. Like, seeing us go for our rinky dink things back 10 years ago when we first met, where I mean, you've grown your Rogers thing going from what was the original show's called?
It was called the Film
like
Slate, which is
Slate,
but
yeah,
even
and
before
then
then, like quickly just kind of venturing off
yeah,
there. So
your
I have
history,
been
yeah.
working so I've been a film critic since high school. And I have a 15-year anniversary coming up this October, because the first review I ever did on a show called Daytime was The
On
Departed
Rogers, yeah.
on Rogers TV, and that was because of producer Judy Kalo. You know, we talked about movies for about 20 minutes or so, and she knew that I had this obsession that was going to
This
annoy the hell
encyclopedic breeding.
Yeah, that was going to annoy the hell out of everybody. So she's like, you know what, like, let's, you know, we're kind of looking for somebody to do that. And then so that's kind of where I got my first exposure to, you know, doing the whole sort of
criticism
on camera thing. And then like having watched a couple older episodes back, I think like maybe 5-10 years ago now, you can tell, like, you know, you get more comfortable as you move on. And I think that's the same thing with even doing something like this, where, you know, we're not perfect by any means. There's always going to be stumbles or forgetting somebody or mispronunciation or something. Yeah. But I think as long as you keep going, and the most important thing here is consistency. You know, like, we never gave
enjoying
up.
It, yeah.
Yeah, and as long as you like what you're doing, like, we don't consider this work. Like, yeah, we're more,
it's a passion project,
professional, and
really,
I guess we are sometimes taken seriously by outlets because they invite us to movie screenings, and
we're both in the Critics' Choice Association. Yeah.
And so there have been these really wonderful sort of milestones within those 10 years that aren't even just, you know, celebrating 100 episodes of this show. Like, it's just, you know, anybody that wants to get into this industry, and we've probably talked about this before, it has to be your passion, because it does not pay. You know, like, and I'm not saying that I would want to be paid thousands and millions of dollars to do this. It's just that, like, if you love this, and you have not even a drive, but an obsession to just, like, Matt and I talk about movies ad nauseum, even when we're not doing this. So it just made sense to do this.
Record it for a couple hours per week. Yeah.
And we never had the expectation, and still don't, that anybody is listening or now watching. You know, we're always
maybe no one's watching, who knows.
Yeah,
but it's fine. That's, again, it goes back to what Eric just said. Like, you gotta love it, you gotta have a passion for it, and like, if one person's listening, that's almost all I need. I'm like, if this brings some enjoyment to one person, I'm happy. And like, again, yes, it would be lovely if someone wanted to sponsor the show, or if Eric and I could be paid, you know, a full-time amazing wage to just constantly do this.
Mountain Dew presents Untitled Movie Podcast.
Or if a unicorn job pops up that was like, we want you to do exactly what you're doing, but for us, or something like that. Like, that's the dream. But like, you know, if that dream doesn't come, that's totally fine, because I'm having a blast doing this. And sure, we could make money, we could put ads on, and maybe we will one day. But, you know, in this first 3 years, we've just enjoyed doing it, and it gives us some opportunities that we wouldn't have been able to get. And yeah, we, you know, both getting in the Critics' Choice Association, that growth there, you getting on Rotten Tomatoes was a huge deal to me, even personally. Like, and I'm obviously, it's such a huge accomplishment for you. It's so silly, but it is like something that just, it's nice for someone to acknowledge the hard work, right?
And it legitimizes, like, you know,
you know,
like,
the outlet, and you, like,
it makes you feel that you're not, like, you never go into this thinking like, oh, I want to be, you know, validated in a sense of like, I want to be the best film critic out there, or like, I should have, you know, access to everything. Like, we're coming from this in the point of view that, like, you know, everything we have gotten, we've worked extremely hard for, but at the same time, we don't take it for granted, because if you take it for granted, then, you know, like, it's just nice to know that sometimes the work is, people care, or at least enjoy it, or are amused by it in some way or another, even if they don't watch or
look
listen
to
to
you
a full
to,
episode.
like, again, I mean, why I listen to people, or you listen to Film Junk, you find people who either, you find some enjoyment in, or you tend to agree with a lot of the stuff that they're saying, and sometimes you want to listen to people you don't agree with,
exactly. Like, and I think that's as healthy as well, because sometimes it's good to have a perspective that you disagree with, but at the same time, you can find, a legitimate form of criticism there that is something you can agree with, even though you don't agree with their opinion, but
or
you say,
maybe
like,
something you didn't even realize, right?
yeah,
Like
like, oh, you know what, I respect what that person is saying, because I find that makes criticism a more healthy space to have a conversation in.
And all forms of criticism, because I've been a big proponent on this show that my style is very different than Eric's style, who is very different than the academic style, who's very different than X style. Like, again, I come
We're all
just
striving to be Gene Shalit, and be as punny
really,
as possible.
really, that's who you are, maybe. But I just love movies, and I think I went to film school. I'm not bullshitting anyone, and not just pretending I know anything, but like, it's just I love movies. I watch a lot of movies. I like sharing that with people. I love talking about that. So then that's kind of where all of this has come from. And I don't care if I make 1 penny or one person listens to, or $1 million and 1 million people listen to us. I would love $1 million. Please give me $1 million.
I'll sell out right now.
And again, it's led to other opportunities. I've worked in marketing. I worked at a streaming service. I've worked at other things.
And not all great experiences as well.
No,
I
not
think
either. And
that's also
life
important
too,
to note, because like, this has always been a constant for us both, but we've had ups and downs in,
our personal lives and careers.
Yeah. And it's not like everything has been sort of, wine and roses when it comes to this podcast opening doors for us, because it hasn't been. Like, we struggle like anybody else in terms of, you have to sometimes fight for things, and you still have to, put your best foot forward, and find different ways of having conversations with people that might not know who you are, or might not consider you on the same level as someone else. And there is a hierarchy when it comes to the way that film criticism works from the perspective of PR people and studios. And it's not necessarily a person's fault for doing that. You can never I think the one thing that you always have to remember is you have to treat everybody the way that you want to be treated. And that,
that's the biggest thing. If we're giving any advice.
Yeah, you need to look at, like, when you hear no from somebody, that's okay. It doesn't mean that your work is
You're
any
not
less.
entitled to
It's
it. Yeah.
just that, maybe they don't think you're there yet, but it's not necessarily that one
there
person.
could be many reasons. It's just like, move on and keep doing this because you love
keep
doing
building
it,
and then come back.
Exactly. Anyways, we don't need to get too hung up on all that, but again, we very much appreciate anyone who's listened, anyone who's watching right now. I'm so thrilled with everything that we've done on this show and on the review show, like doing 250 plus 260, I think we just hit reviews, just over 260. You guys can check out our Shang-Chi review on YouTube and podcast services, and many more reviews over on Untitled Movie Reviews, that channel. So we do 2 to 3 reviews sometimes per week, if not more.
And that doesn't include festival seasons, where, like, in the last, a silver lining for the pandemic is that many festivals, including TIFF this year and last year, is that there was a virtual component, and that we were available, or we were able, and they were available, films were available to us to stream on various platforms. So we had the opportunity to cover, movies that played at Sundance, films that played at Tribeca, a couple of movies that played at South by Southwest, TIFF, and those opportunities, we don't take lightly either. We are so grateful to be considered and accredited for those. And when we spend 2 weeks of the year at the beginning of September, doing this, even if it is an adjustment from what it used to be, we're still looking forward to it, because we get to see stuff not only in advance, but we get to actually sort of have this communal experience that is still somewhat missing since the pandemic.
I think this podcast, was born at TIFF. My marriage was born at TIFF. Like, I owe a lot to that festival, and I feel like TIFF is our, we joke TIFF miss Christmas, like TIFF miss. And I think our year ends and begins with, the Toronto International Film Festival. And it is like, I think it's our, we do the most coverage. We go wild with it every single year, at least on this show. And even when we weren't doing this show, you and I would buy whether it was I'm covering it for another outlet, or we would buy
Industry
a
pass.
industry badge, or I'd buy, even back in the day, filling out the 40 tickets that we would get, public tickets.
Do you
And,
remember those, that time where it's like,
I still have them somewhere.
Man.
I kept it, or my parents kept it. I have one where you had to fill out by hand with the check mark. Where it sound like, I mean, there's people way older than us probably that are like, guys,
when it was the
doing
festival
that
of
for, like,
festivals.
yeah. But for me, like I there were a few years where I filled it out on paper, and it's obviously so much easier now. And I'm so, grateful that we were able to cover, as media or industry for the last, I mean, this is your first year as a true, media, which is just, I mean, I'm so proud about that too, because like, I think you've deserved it for a long ass time, and you probably could have gotten it earlier. It was just the convenience of you not having to worry. So you just got the industry badge. Cause it's always like, again, we go back to, no one owes us anything. So when you submit to a festival or anything, there is a chance you will not get in. I did not get into TIFF last year, through media, and that's totally okay. I'm like, you know what? It's up to them. They only had a certain amount of things. Like, again, no one owes us anything. We're just grateful when people include us or offer us, opportunities or pre-screenings and stuff like that. Like, if they don't want to, that's totally fine. Eric, there's so many reviews we do or things we talk about on the show that we pay out of our own pocket. And like, again, all the stuff on the back end as well. But I just think, like, I'm just so grateful we're able to do this, and I do it as a passion project. And even when I work a full-time job, or like right now, I mean, I was very open on a previous episode about my mental health issues, leaving my job and things like that. And like, I'm lucky to be able to do this and focus on this right now, but I will have to, this doesn't pay the bills. So I'm going to eventually have to go back and, work at something that's, might be in this industry, might not be. And that's totally okay too. I'll still continue to do this show. Will it change a little bit? Maybe, based on, I'll have to do it in the evenings and stuff like that, but we'll make it work. And we always have made it work. And like,
It's about adapting, right?
Yeah, I had to take a couple year break. That I really realized I missed it when I went to go work at Show Me. And I couldn't, like, because I was working for a streaming service, I felt like there was a conflict of interest doing a podcast or like reviewing content, which right now, thinking back on it, I probably could have kept doing it. But I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. And I left film criticism because I needed to, find a real job. And unfortunately, I think that was a mistake, and I really missed it. And that's why ultimately, when I left and went to Rogers, that's when I hit you up again. And I'm like, we got to do something again. And I remember it was born in August 3 years ago, right before TIFF. And I'm like, we just got to start a podcast again, dude. And I'm like, we'll just do it easy. Like, I will make the cheapest album art possible. And like, we were like, we'll just make it like a script format, like, untitled, draft, right? Like, you're writing a movie, it's an untitled movie, and you're writing the first draft of the script, so everything can look like a movie script that way.
Well, it's savvy marketing on your part too, because when people, what you told me is that people, when they're researching or looking up something,
will search for movie podcast. So SEO, learn that. Working for marketing teams.
Send Matt a check if you succeed in that.
SEO. I mean, our friends Daniel and the team over at the Movie Podcast, I feel like they ripped us off. Just kidding, guys. Do the same thing. It's smart to just put movie podcast in your title, because that's what you are. And like, that's what people are searching for. That's why you put movie review in your title of whatever. And so yeah, and then it was more like born out of not laziness, but just, I'm not a graphic designer. You're technologically,
impaired.
illiterate.
It's okay.
Yeah. I know I'm just,
what
shit,
though, but you know what though, like, from everything that you have done, and again, like, we have this new intro that is this great sort of retro throwback. I would never say that you, like, yeah, you might be trial and error, and that, like, you learn through tutorials and things like that, but like, I mean, you're one of those people that like can adapt to a situation, or learn how to do something. Like, that's a hard thing to do.
Work smarter is what I've heard from people, is like, don't be embarrassed that you used a template, or you took things from different templates and made your own thing. Like, just, that's totally fine. You don't need to work your ass off to, like, if you're not a graphic designer, that's why those things are there. So you can make cool looking stuff and know basic Photoshop or basic After Effects or basic editing. Like everything we're doing, like I don't have, like I'm a tech savvy person, and like I really thrived and loved media arts and video production in school and stuff. But I missed that kind of stuff, and I'm self-taught, and a lot of it is like you can find really cool, like people, if you're listening to this and want to do this, or if you've ever wanted to, is like just do it, man. Like you can start with something simple and then change. Like we started with literally script font. It just said Untitled Movie Podcast based on the characters by God, which is stupid thinking about it. Like, I just thought, I'm like, thinking back on it, it was just a joke. But then I'm like, did people think we were like a religious movie podcast? And I'm like, because that's not what we were. And then
isn't Film Spotting a little bit of like a religious podcast?
Is it? I'm not sure. But so anyways, that was just a dumb gag of like, because based on the characters by someone, by Stan Lee or whoever. Like I was just making a joke about that. I'm not a religious person at all, even though I went to Catholic school. But then
I think we were both baptized.
Yeah. And then after a year or so, I'm like, okay, this album art is terrible. It's so tiny, you can't even see what it says. Like I changed it, put quotations on there, controversial, and like changed our our podcast art to be still the black and white, still the script font and things like that. And then now leading into this third year, our fourth year, our third anniversary, I'm just like,
our phase 4.
Let's change everything up. So I changed all the album art. We're on YouTube, created an intro, created a little jingle, but it's just literally pulling and piecing things together and creating something that's your own, even though you got help from people who are good at it. And I feel like that's why people sell these things. And if you have a little, not everyone has the means, and you can do it even cheaper than what we did. You don't have to invest any money really, but if you do, invest a little bit, it's not even that much, you can get some cool stuff and make something that's, not saying that we're successful by any means, but we just enjoy doing it. And it will help me in other areas of my career and my life, like this show, managing it, scheduling the reviews, doing the social media posts, like
we even just
editing,
talking, right? I think that helps
like,
with speech,
interviews and anything. Like,
yeah,
like if you're going into a quote unquote real career and you have to have a job interview or you have to interact with people, like this show and talking for hundreds of hours with Eric, thousands of hours probably on all of our shows, has probably just helped us personally, like in our lives, just be better at, or we'll be exhausted after it and don't want to talk to anyone. But
we got to get to a point where we can go through all of this and create AIs.
I think we could at this point,
in the same way that like Bruce Willis is using the Face app to not act in anything but still gets paid when anybody uses his likeness.
Right. Yeah, right. I think we've done maybe enough hours, because I think you only need like probably less amount of hours than what we have done on all of our shows. So I feel like we could create AIs and then just, let them do the show, and we'll just sit back and earn no money because we don't
collect
make any
that
money.
sweet cash.
Yeah. Let's move on, Eric. What have you 100th episode? What special things have you been watching?
Matt, I watched Sweet Girl.
God. Okay. You texted me. We both have a thing that has, which we won't spoil the twist to either Sweet Girl or the game that I played, which is very cinematic and inspired by, different movies. I'll get into it in a sec. Also has a wild twist. We won't spoil either of them. But Eric, how is Sweet Girl? I'm going to go get a Coke Zero.
Matt, Sweet Girl is a fairly standard revenge thriller that kind of is taking on big pharma from the point of view of people that are victims of circumstance, and Jason Momoa and Isabella Merced co-star as a father-daughter duo who are on the road running or being hunted down by big pharma assassins or appointed assassins. And for the most part, it's a fairly standard VOD-esque title in the way that, you would see something pop up on a Friday and see somebody like, the aforementioned Bruce Willis or Nicolas Cage when he's not doing something as wonderful and, intimate and internalized as Pig. With the caveat of this is a movie that is completely financed by Netflix. So there is a certain level of quality with the crew involved, specifically cinematographer Barry Ackroyd, who's worked with both Catherine Bigelow and Paul Greengrass. And there's not as much shaky cam as you maybe would expect hearing that name as the cinematographer, but there are certain action set pieces that are well choreographed and composed than your typical VOD movie starring a over-the-hill movie star of the 80s into the mid-90s. And so it's pretty much forgettable, but then it does something that I think even if M. Night Shyamalan watched this movie in terms of plot twists, would take a step back and be like, that's ridiculous. And I almost weirdly
That's a sentence.
I almost weirdly recommend people watch this just for the twist, but it's still not worth it, really, because it's just a kind of middle of the road, forgettable, bad movie. But it's almost so bad it's good, as Matt cracks into a Coke Zero, to watch how ridiculous that twist is.
That's a soda. Better than that Mountain Dew.
Yeah. And so I can't recommend the movie, and I'm almost probably like making this sound more intriguing than it actually is, but I was kind of like, it's the kind of twist that you would never be able to predict. And then on top of that, you also have Justin Bartha of the Hangover movies playing a scummy big pharma CEO who in two of his big scenes is wearing this ridiculous hunter's vest. And like they're during, like he's wearing these vests like during like a press conference and a CNN interview. And I'm like, why are you wearing this vest that looks like you're about to go and like chop up wood and you know, hang out on the set of Dexter New Blood or
season,
whatever it's called. And so yeah, it's terrible. It's real bad. But the thing that makes it memorable is the plot twist, which isn't good, but it's just so outlandish that it's kind of like, that's what I'll remember it for.
Yeah, I was asking you about the twist today, and I was like, should I watch this movie? And you're like, no, but he was like, the twist is so ridiculous. And I'm like, I kind of want to know the twist. And I'm like, should I just watch the movie just to see what this twist is? I'm sure I'll still be disappointed and not like it, but I do want to see it. Speaking of twists, I played 12 Minutes, which is a Xbox game and PC game. A point and click adventure time loop game, starring James McAvoy, Daisy Ridley, and Willem Dafoe. So essentially the premise of the game is
he's a big Mountain Dew guy, Willem Dafoe.
Is he? Yeah.
Well, have you seen that photo of him holding the bag of Doritos with the Mountain Dew
that sounds
backdrop,
great.
And Dafoe's just really sad looking?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds ideal to me. I love Mountain Dew and Doritos, but this Baja Fresh was not, or Baja Blast. It was a Baja Blast twist thing. Anyways, Willem Dafoe, James McAvoy, Daisy Ridley, point and click adventure time loop game where a man comes home from work. His wife greets him there in their apartment. She has dessert ready for the both of them, and she has an announcement to tell him over this dessert. She made his favorite dessert.
What is the dessert?
It's like a chocolate cake kind of thing. Looks like not like a, like a molten lava cake almost, it looked like, or maybe it had some fruit on it. But anyways, you have this conversation with your wife, and a policeman bangs on the door and says, open up. And it's played by Willem Dafoe. Essentially, this policeman breaks into your apartment, zip ties or handcuffs you and your wife, asks where this watch is, and says your wife murdered her father 8 years before and that she's being arrested for it. But he's then asking her for this pocket watch she has. And in the first loop, depending on what you do, he tries to get this pocket watch, and he then either punches you or murders you. And then you realize you are stuck in a time loop. And essentially you're reliving the same 12 minutes this night over and over and over again, these 12 minutes or less, depending on what you do. So until you figure out why this policeman is coming to your house, why your wife is being accused of murdering her father, and why this guy wants this pocket watch, essentially. And I played it because the creator, said there was a ton of cinematic influences. I mean, you walk out the first elevator, the carpet is the carpet from The Shining, the Overlook Hotel. which has been done a million times, which was fine, whatever.
Oh,
But
I
he said
thought
it
it
was
first came from Ready
um,
Player One.
yeah, exactly. um, but I love the idea of like a time loop escape room, point and click, have to find different items and make them interact in different ways and get more information and search the house and ask your wife questions and ask the cop things. And each time loop you learn different information, which opens up different things you can ask people or different things. Um, and I played it because he was like, "Oh, I'm inspired by Memento and David Fincher movies and things like that." As Georgie is crawling all over my setup, and I bet you, thank God
Georgie
for
is
cats
Matt's
being like, yeah,
sister's
it's
cat.
cat, and I let her crawl over things because I feel like it would be more of a pain in the ass to try and pull her away, and then she tears down a camera or a light or something like that. She's sniffing my old Starbucks cups. Anyways, the cinematic influence is the reason why I wanted to play it. Love point and click kind of mystery time loop, escape room time kinds of games. It's a very flawed game with also a insane twist and a terrible ending. Like I feel like I was intrigued throughout the whole thing. It was very cinematic. The voice acting by Ridley and McAvoy is interesting because they're both doing American accents, and I'm just like, is
Why not
like,
hire American
yeah,
actors?
or have them do their normal accents.
British
Like,
accents, yeah.
like who cares? Like, it's just, why not? Like, I don't get it. Like at times you could tell it was McAvoy and Ridley, but you can tell it's them doing an accent. And
Or
you're
just
just like,
hire Joseph Gordon-Levitt to do a French accent.
yeah, it's just, it didn't, they're not bad at the accent. It's just why? Cause I guess Willem Dafoe, but even then, like it just didn't make any sense. So, but their voice acting is good. It's a little obviously repetitive, and it doesn't do a great job at like holding your hand or giving you, like, it gives you hints at what you're supposed to piece together, but it's really frustrating at times where it doesn't kind of guide you of where you're supposed to go. It really goes, you're on your own. You'll be stuck in this fucking loop if you don't figure out what to do next. And like some things that they try that you have to do to set the thing into motion, or you learn a new piece of information, you're just like, how the fuck was I supposed to figure that out on my own? Like there were certain things where eventually you get there because you're like, all right, she's talking about this light switch a lot, or she's talking about this whatever a lot. And you're like, I guess it's something to do with that. And then you do it over and over again until you figure it out. And then ultimately, the conclusion of the game, I was intrigued up until the very end. And the reveal of what happened and where the story goes was very disturbing, but not earned. Because I was telling you earlier, and I've told you the twist because I know you're not going to play the game, and I won't talk about the twist here. You could easily find it if you want to spoil it on the internet. But I'm not against with what the game. I'm not against because we said this earlier. Not the right words. I'm fine.
Sorry, it's because I know what it is, and it's
I'm
just funny.
fine with you portraying that on in a story, as long as it feels earned or it feels like it makes sense for the story. What they eventually reveal and what the reasoning behind it for, or who they reveal what happens, is just so ridiculous, to the point of like, that's so cheap. What they did was cheap. Like, and I just didn't feel earned. And I'm like, you didn't earn the disturbing nature of your final act and your final twist because your explanation of what happened was so lazy. And that's what ultimately almost ruined the game for me, where it's like, it is not a fun story, but it was, video games have to be fun. It was interesting to try to piece things together and figure out the mystery, if that makes sense. And there were times where I was like bashing my head against my desk going, I don't understand what this game wants me to do next. And I will admit, I had to go and look at a guide and go, give me a little clue of what I'm supposed to do next. Like I would find where I am in the story, and I would just look, be like, you might remember that there's this on the fridge or whatever. And I'm like, oh fuck, I'm supposed to find that. And I'm like, how is I supposed to remember that? Something that happened hours earlier. As Eric sends me something, oh yeah, the Willem Dafoe Doritos. It's incredible. Just incredible. So anyways, it's I played it on Xbox game like streaming, like, so I don't even own an Xbox, so you can stream video games through them on xbox.com if you have Xbox Game Pass. So I got a 3-month trial for like $1 because 12 minutes was a game I really wanted to check out. And it worked really, really well on my Mac. I used a controller. Oh, the controllers are also terrible. I know this is a movie podcast, not a gaming podcast, because I wanted to focus more on the story, but like the controls were awful because you're controlling a cursor and not the actual character. So you're moving a cursor around with the controller and then clicking A to like investigate an item, and then drag. You have to click and drag things around.
So that
which
makes
is
it more frustrating than
on a controller.
Yeah.
It's like, because if I was playing with a mouse, which you can play on PC if you have a PC, but I have a Mac, on a mouse and keyboard, it would be so much more intuitive. Like you're just clicking and dragging and clicking on things, like that would be great. But the way that they have it on controller is awful. But ultimately I was there for the story and I was in for the ride until ultimately the explanation they gave of what was happening. Like the solution was just not, it was just didn't feel earned at all and just felt like it was disturbing for the sake of being disturbing. And then the explanation of who done it essentially, or what happened, was just like, come on, give me a fucking break. So a good video game almost ruined by a bad ending. But I still think it's probably worth playing. And like, if you like that kind of stuff with, and it has a, you know, a really A-list voice cast. So 12 minutes was the one kind of movie adjacent kind of thing that I consumed this week.
But it
Anything
is
else on your
interesting
end?
though, talking about,
Yeah.
you know, like getting actors of that pedigree to do something like that. I mean, you're seeing that more and more where, I mean, speaking of
Annapurna produced it as well.
yeah, and speaking of like Willem Dafoe, didn't he work with Elliot Page on like some
Yeah, he did Beyond, not Beyond Two Souls. Was it Beyond Two Souls?
because then you have the stuff with like Norman Reedus and Nicholas Winding Refn and
In
Mads Mikkelsen
Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding, which is
Yeah.
getting a remaster, a director's cut in September, which I will play at some point, because Hideo Kojima, his Metal Gear games have always, I mean, they usually used voice actors, although you see some, you know, name I'm using in quotes like Phil Lamar from Mad TV and other people pop up in Metal Gear games.
Star of
but
Pulp Fiction.
I mean, Kiefer Sutherland did the voice of Snake in the most recent Metal Gear game.
Oscar
that
Isaac
they
is
did.
going to probably be playing him in a film version,
Which
if they do.
I think it's, his games are so cinematic that they would translate to movies really, really well. But yeah, you see A-list people pop up here and there, and it's happening more and more often. Or
And
you'll
they're
usually
using
have
their
like,
likeness too. Like it's
Yeah.
not just a voice. Like were they using the likeness of Willem Dafoe and Daisy Ridley and
No.
James McAvoy?
So the animation wasn't lifelike. It was more like, it was a top-down view, so you would see the whole apartment from the top down. So you'd only see like the top of the characters' heads, and then kind of like their outline of their, like from their head down, like top of their head down. So the likeness wasn't really like, you know, what they look like. Not really. Like, I mean, it was a bald dude with a beard for the cop that Willem Dafoe was playing, and like, you know, McAvoy and Ridley are playing a white couple. Sure, it sort of looks like them, I guess. But like, that being said, yeah, like, I think was it Beyond Two Souls? Yeah, Elliot Page, then Ellen Page in Beyond Two Souls, and Willem Dafoe were in because I was looking at the poster right now. So Elliot Page and Willem Dafoe were in Beyond Two Souls, yeah, which I never played, but I heard very mixed things. But they used their likeness in that as well.
Yeah, which I think that's kind of interesting as well in terms of you know, where video games have gone, and I think, you know, having that conversation, you said it's not a video game podcast, but I think, you know, with The Last of Us Part 2, you know, having that conversation, and also with the series coming up, and you know, your love of Super Mario Brothers the movie,
We're getting a Mario Bros movie next year.
maybe Criterion will come knocking next for the film, which now they're on 4K, which is also a perfect segue, because a movie that they sent me a copy of, which I'm very grateful, whenever they send me anything, was Beasts of No Nation, the Cary Fukunaga film, distributed by Netflix. So this is one of the films that they made a deal with Netflix to release on physical media and on Blu-ray, and obviously we talked about Criterion on the last show as well, with them upgrading to 4K in November. There's something about Beasts of No Nation, having watched it at TIFF with you, I think it was at the Scotiabank Theater, and being so excited for that film and being completely let down by it, because Cary Fukunaga, I mean, he has, tentatively...
Wasn't he coming off of True Detective at that
He
point?
was, yeah. So Cary Fukunaga this year has, tentatively speaking, knock on wood, the new Bond movie that he directed.
Yeah, God, I hope.
No Time to Die, in the beginning of October. But before that, he was this, and he still is. I still think for the most part he still is a really great filmmaker. He debuts with Sin Nombre back in 2009, and then follows that up with his adaptation of Jane Eyre with Mia Wasikowska and Michael Fassbender, and those two movies are this usher in this new filmmaker that's so exciting. And then he does this whole season of True Detective with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, and again redefines sort of event television and binge worthy watching. Like, you need to, like, that was appointment viewing, before the second season kind of ruined True Detective, and season 2 kind of, it's not as good, but Mahershala Ali makes it watchable. And then Beast of No Nation, it's like, okay, is working with Idris Elba, is telling a really politically powerful story, and then like the idea of like a story about child soldiers in Africa. But I think what kind of ruins it for me, not ruins it in like, oh, I can't watch it or I don't like it, I think it's an okay movie, it's just I had higher expectations, is I think the whimsy and the fairy tale-esque aspect of the storytelling, and also being set in a fictional Western African country,
Right.
It almost, there's so much disassociation with that, and that even though it is based on true events, in the sense of like, you hear about children being abducted from their villages and brutally tortured and manipulated and brainwashed into becoming vicious killers themselves, and that's not untrue. It's just the idea that this story specifically is framed around sort of a fictitious narrative that I almost wish that there was more realism and grounding it in reality, even though it is based on truth within the world. It's not a specific true story. I almost felt that I wish that it was based on a true story, because they take artistic liberties that feel like you're being read a bedtime story, and I don't think that necessarily works with what is being portrayed within the film, even though there are moments that are very profound and moving with the way that Fukunaga sort of directs and sort of uses the cinematography in interesting ways, and like there's this almost like thermal sort of sequence that I think is kind of interesting. I like that Idris Elba is cast in a role that is very much against type and playing a very sadistic kind of villain who continues to reveal even more horrible aspects of himself. When you think like, even when he plays villains on like The Wire, he's very charming and affable to a certain degree. But yeah, there's just something about it that I wanted to love that movie, and I only respected it. And rewatching it now, and also reading film critic Robert Daniels' really wonderful essay on the film, it made me appreciate it more, but I still feel the same way about the movie. But if you want to buy a physical copy of it, it is now available on Criterion Blu-ray. And I do advocate for or appreciate Criterion releasing, Netflix and Amazon releases, even though if you have a subscription to them, they're easily available to you. It's just that there's something about having a physical copy of, movies like Roma or The Irishman, or, with Sound of Metal coming up through Amazon Studios, making that deal as well. There's just something about it. It's like, okay, like I really love the idea of them doing this, and Marriage Story, and hopefully they continue this, because there are films like Okja, which I would really love to have.
Sweet Girl.
Yeah, Sweet Girl, the Criterion version of that would be amazing. Or Sandy Wexler, available.
All the Adam Sandler box set.
Well, Adam Sandler. The joke is though, Adam Sandler has
Gems
2 movies through the Criterion collection with Uncut Gems, which is coming out in October, and Punch Drunk Love. So I mean that has to count for something,
Put Funny People on Criterion, any sort of other dramatic adjacent kind of role he's done, just throw it on Criterion.
Spanglish.
Oh God, yeah. What's that 9/11 movie he did?
Oh, Reign Over Me.
Yeah, Reign Over Me.
Which is terrible.
I don't remember it, or did I even see it?
It's with him and Don Cheadle, and it's post 9/11, and his family died.
I must have seen it because I just referenced it. So,
and he looks like Bob Dylan. Like they wanted to make him look like Bob Dylan.
Right. Yeah, Beast of No Nation I haven't seen since that TIFF screening, and I remember thinking it was okay. I don't remember much from it really, and I haven't had a desire to revisit it. But it's not like an easy rewatch either. So,
no, it's not.
But this is a good excuse to check out the Criterion and watch that. On my end, I watched Don't Breathe and Don't Breathe 2, which we can either cover here. We might do a review for Don't Breathe 2 soon, like if in the next week. I know we're really delayed on that, but it was the week that I went to the cottage, so we did go see Don't Breathe 2. I don't know if we have much to say about it, but I'm gonna hold it. I think we should do a review eventually. It'll just come a bit later. So let's do a Don't Breathe package and Don't Breathe 2. And then Candyman as well. Like we'll be covering the 2021 Candyman,
the Nia DaCosta version. Yeah.
This week. So I'm gonna save my thoughts on the OG Candyman, first watch of OG Candyman.
The Bernard Rose version, which came out in the early 90s. 92. And then you also have 2 sequels that follow.
Which we still haven't determined, are they canon?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch that movie, because I've seen both of them. The subtitles being Farewell to the Flesh and Day of the Dead. The second one is directed by Bill Condon, who would go on to have a career directing movies like Twilight, but also Beauty and the Beast, the live action remake, and more prestigious films like Gods and Monsters and things like that, and Dreamgirls. So yeah, it'll be fascinating to have that conversation. And even just thinking about, like, in the 90s, that was kind of like what Tony Todd was best known for. And now if you were to show a photo of Tony Todd to somebody, or ask like, oh, do you know who Tony Todd is? Probably more people would know him from the Final Destination films as The Undertaker than they would as the titular Candyman.
And speaking of Final Destination, you can check out our reviews of The Night House. Speaking of Final Destination, Paw Patrol the movie, and like I mentioned, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So all over on Untitled Movie Reviews. And starting with Shang-Chi, you can get Untitled Movie Reviews right here on YouTube as well, and podcast services. So that's a separate channel on podcast services, Untitled Movie Reviews. Please go subscribe over there. And it's still right on the same feed right here on YouTube. And then that was kind of it. Like, my biggest thing was 12 minutes, because it was like I don't know how many hours it took me, but
it didn't take you 12 minutes though.
No, it didn't. 12 minutes over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
It almost sounds weirdly a little bit like Bandersnatch, where like it almost is like pick your own, like
it's a pick your own adventure a little bit, but you can get different endings. So like I originally got one ending, and then you can kind of change it because it's not the proper ending, or the actual ending or whatever like that, which Bandersnatch had that too. But Bandersnatch was playing in that realm of being, an interactive game.
It's an interactive CD-ROM.
That's kind of what it was. And then other than that, it's mostly like TV stuff. I watched wrestling this week. So I watched SummerSlam, as well as
with
AEW
Brock Lesnar.
Viking Brock Lesnar came back at the end, which was pretty dope. The pay-per-view itself,
And Goldberg?
Yeah, Goldberg came. He wrestled again, which are like, no one wants Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg. But Cena was there. Having a movie connection, so he fought Roman Reigns.
You're speaking specifically about Vacation
Friends, which we will have a review of this week as well.
Matt.
We got to celebrate the 100th episode somehow.
Got to keep that little Rel Howery
number one
actor, yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
Which is impressive. So Cena lost to Roman Reigns. Becky Lynch came back, but they totally botched how that happened as well. And speaking of not botching a comeback, I watched AEW for the first time this week, which is the kind of competitor to WWE and where a lot of people who leave WWE go because it's the only other big, not the only other big, hardcore wrestling fans will say that there are other ones that they watch that aren't televised as regularly, but AEW's on TNT, so Turner Network, which is where like WCW used to be and things like that. But they've been kind of like Chris Jericho went over there and started that with Cody Rhodes, who was like, Dustin Rhodes. I don't know, Eric, if you remember any, like, do you remember Gold Dust? The guy
I do. I remember Gold Dust. Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's Gold Dust's brother who started AEW with Chris Jericho and some other people. Anyway,
is what's his name?
Stinger's over there.
I'm gonna you're gonna laugh at me, but is CM Punk?
CM Punk, that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
So CM Punk, who stars in Heels on Stars, which is coming up, I think the first episode premiered.
And that's the Amell Brothers series, right?
Yeah, about wrestling. And essentially he's been gone for 7 years. He left WWE on very bad terms. Did not enjoy his time there, even though he was one of the biggest stars at WWE at one point.
And you were a fan, right?
Your brother, I think, really liked CM Punk. I did, but it's more like I was leaving. Like, I wasn't as interested in wrestling at that time, but I knew of this CM Punk guy and that he was like the guy. He was like, no, he's great, even if everything else isn't. So he made his big return after 7 years he came over to AEW, which is a lot of wrestlers that leave, are going over here and they're trying to start something on AEW. So, but this was just like huge because everyone, has wanted him to come back for the longest time. He's tried his hand in UFC. He's tried acting now too. So
it's probably better than The Miz.
He absolutely is better than The Miz. Yeah, for sure. Very charismatic guy. And it was really cool to see, I don't love that these arenas are like sold out in the US and stuff like that and jam packed with people. Does
it add like an extra layer of anxiety?
Oh, absolutely.
For you?
He jumped into the crowd, dude. Like at one
Ooh.
point, he's like high-fiving and hugging people. He literally like not crowd surfed, but he jumped into the crowd. And I'm like, I don't know if everyone's like got their proof of vaccination or their COVID
or just has been vaxxed.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. So I don't know.
That I kind of like that though, that there is something else available because again, my limited knowledge of wrestling comes from both you and my brother Kyle. But from what I have gathered is that, in terms of mainstream wrestling, televised wrestling, and the way that it is commercial, it's Vince McMahon's way or the highway.
Yeah.
And this, from what you're saying, almost gives an opportunity to the people that have gotten on Vince McMahon's bad side for one reason or another,
or burned by him at some point,
or maybe are just kind of kicked to the curb, even if they weren't given
another shot here. Yeah, that's exactly what
cool.
it is. It is. They're just started. It's what WCW was trying to do when it was competing against WWE, and then eventually WWE won that war. And I don't know if there's a war quite yet between the two sides, but CM Punk openly called out WWE and like he made a really good like dig at them by saying like, I retired in 2005, which is right when he left Ring of Honor to go to WWE. He's like, I retired from wrestling in 2005 and I'm finally making my comeback. But he had a whole stint in WWE during that time. So he just completely shit on them there. And there's a lot of people who hate Vince McMahon and Vince McMahon is he's just an asshole. Like he's just horrible, like a horrible person. So
fascinating individual, but
yeah,
from everything you've told me and everything I've read about him, seems like a complete
just
nightmare,
egotistical, like
and doesn't know what a burrito is.
Friends with Donald Trump, like just just garbage. But
Yeah.
and like, you know, you have people like, you know, Triple H, and he's married to Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon's daughter, who, you know, you think are trying to make it better, but really
Well, Shane
they're
McMahon
just,
too,
and
right? Like,
Shane too. But like, even then, if Vince is around, it's Vince's call. And WWE has been, it's been successful, obviously. I mean, it's not as popular as it once was, but with CM Punk coming back, like it finally feels like, I don't want to say one guy will legitimize an organization, but if you're able to sign a guy who's been gone for 7 years that people have been craving to see come back so badly, and the ovation he got when he came out was incredible. And like, there's rumors that, you know, they'll sign Daniel Bryan, who is a big WWE guy too, who used to be an indie wrestler as well, married to one of the Bellas, who, you know, famously dated John Cena, but not with him anymore. Anyways,
it's Cena.
And then they just released, like, WWE just released like Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, and they picked up some other guys WWE released, and Sting's over there, and you know, what's Stinger doing here is the thing that I remember. Eric
How
saying all the
close are
time.
we to getting the big guys? Like, I'm talking about
David Arquette.
David Arquette, yes. No, but I'm talking about like the, you know, the ones that everybody wants to see back in the ring. Diamond Dallas Page,
Yeah.
Sergeant Slaughter,
Oh yeah.
and Jake the Snake Roberts.
I think some of them are struggling. DDP does like yoga now, and he has like a successful yoga empire.
Well, he's in
and
the David Arquette doc.
Yeah, and he's helped, I think maybe it was Jake the Snake or someone, like he's helped like a lot of wrestlers who like are pretty fucked up because of, you know, steroids and alcohol, and like just they're beating their bodies over and over again for years and years and years. So he's helped a lot of people get back on their feet. And he always pops up every once in a while. And that, like, that's the vibe that AEW has, is they bring in like some older guys who like Ric Flair might sign with them now. And Ric Flair's like 100, but he's looked like 100 years old, what seems like my whole life. So like,
but they'll also maybe give them like commentator positions, the way that like
that's
Booker
what they
T kind of has
so
in WWE.
They had 4 people on commentary, which is way too many people to have on commentary. They had Jim Ross, who was one of the most iconic WWE announcers of all time. JR's getting a bit old, probably.
What's Stinger doing here?
Probably should retire. Like, I love JR, but I'm like, all right, JR, it's probably time to, you can just go chill, man. You don't need to do this anymore.
But can he? Do you think like he has been financially smart with his money, or maybe
I'm
like
not
he's
sure.
just continues to do it because he has to?
That's probably. I think his wife also maybe passed away. And maybe it keeps him occupied. And then they have Taz, who also used to be in WWE, and they have Mark Henry, who also used to be in WWE, and then they have another guy that I wasn't familiar with, but like, it's interesting. The production value, I don't think, is quite at like WWE levels. Like, WWE has been doing this for so long, and they had so much money, and I know the guy who owns AEW is also a billionaire, I think, too, or something. But it's not as slick. Like, I know they're trying to go for a different vibe, but I felt like the production value maybe wasn't quite there. But I'm intrigued. CM Punk's awesome, so I'm intrigued to watch a bit more of it, even though wrestling, it's ridiculous, but I have fun watching it with friends sometimes too. So you know, it's a guilty pleasure of mine that I tune into the big ones, which is why I watched SummerSlam on the weekend. So and AEW was just a big event because CM Punk was coming back. So that's what I watched. We don't need to review those over on the reviews channel, but I watched them. Eric,
yes.
Were there any trailers? Oh wait, I heard about one. So the Spider-Man saga has been, you know, people screaming to release the No Way Home trailer for what seems like an eternity. And CinemaCon, as we're speaking, I believe like in 45 minutes, the Sony CinemaCon panel is about to start. So probably as we're wrapping up this show, the Spider-Man trailer will drop. That'll be our luck. Our 100th episode And right after we finish recording, the Spider-Man trailer will probably drop. But
which is almost kind of fitting in a
perfect.
weird
Yeah.
way.
Oh, absolutely. We'll have to talk about it on 101. Will I title this video the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer leak?
Well,
Just so
I think
people
you
maybe
should
click on
actually
it?
sort of create a watermark and have the name
Yeah.
of the person
Just
as
over the whole video,
yeah.
or this segment at least. That's funny. That's good. Maybe I'll do that. But that takes more in editing.
And then also record it on your phone.
So what's Eric's alluding to is last night, I hopped on Twitter after running errands with Nevis. Eric was sleeping or something. I don't know what you were doing. I'm just joking.
What time was it?
I don't know. Remember you woke up woke up from, your mystery dungeon of whatever you do. And then I hopped online and I saw Spider-Man, No Way Home trending again. And then I saw some people in my feed start going, oh, the trailer leaked. And I was like, oh, God, I've seen this 100 times. I'm like, I bet you it didn't leak. I've seen TikTok videos of like kids who are pretty good at editing shit together that just make it look real and it's not. So I Googled it and I found a tweet that was like, here's the video. And I'm like, all right, let's see if this is real. So I click on it and it is someone recording from their cell phone, another person's cell phone, which was watching a video of someone recording a laptop with their cell phone. So you had 3 layers of this thing, of what it was going through. And what Eric's alluding to is like, you could see at times this trailer starts playing and I'm like, this seems pretty legit. And I'm like, oh no, there's some dialogue there and like some people that I'm like, that's like real. That's real. Like Doctor Strange is in this, Spider-Man's in this. Like this is the real trailer. Then you see unfinished special effects pop in and you're like, oh no. And then you see this guy's name plastered across the thing, like a watermark of who, maybe it was a special effects artist or someone working on the trailer. This was probably from a little while ago. And his or hers or theirs name is plastered all over the center of the trailer. And then I watched the whole thing. Now I'm like, I can't hear anything. I can barely see what's happening, but I watched it and I was like, oh, that was the real Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. And then I thought that was hilarious. And, it's been weird because we thought we would have had a trailer by now, but we've always assumed it was probably coming with Shang-Chi. But we did just get an Eternals trailer, final trailer, which we can talk about as well, Eric. But this past week, they've just been holding out for some reason. And the rumor was that it was going to show up at CinemaCon tonight, but it might not be released online. But now with this leak, will it show up? We might already be outdated. Maybe it's already out there. But it's almost comical at this point with this movie. Alfred Molina coming out and openly talking about being in it. And then Kevin Feige being like, some people like to talk and some people don't. And then like, that's it. And then,
well,
like,
even
okay.
Every time you have somebody that has a movie coming out that might be associated or rumored to be in it,
Willem Dafoe,
Emma Stone during Cruella, like
yeah.
So like, even though we haven't seen a trailer, we don't really know the overall synopsis of what the plot is.
We know Doctor Strange is in it. We know it's probably dealing with multiverse stuff.
We know Alfred Molina's in it.
And Jamie Foxx is in it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we know. And it's just comical that like this is how it kind of gets out there. And so many, probably hundreds of thousands of people have watched this. The worst quality thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. I think actually, a friend of ours and fellow critic, Ben Shane, actually made a really interesting point, that it almost kind of has like that Comic-Con quality where it's like you see someone releases the bootleg version of the Comic-Con panel trailer being shown, and then Warner Brothers specifically wised up to that and just decided to release them
trailers right after,
as if they were like day and date, like at the same time, so there wouldn't be those copyright issues and all the traffic would go to Warner Brothers in terms of like YouTube or on any of their social media websites.
Yeah. So I'm almost like we should go another 45 minutes just to try to get past 9 p.m. because
I got nothing going on.
9 p.m. Eastern, because that's when the panel starts. Because I'm like,
Watch it in real time.
They'd probably kick it off with that and then drop it online if it's coming tonight. And then the other thing that, Tom Holland on his Instagram. Sorry, I hate being this guy, but I will. He posted "Y'all aren't ready" on his Instagram story last night, and people are like, "Oh shit, that means like the trailer's coming." And
watch it be Uncharted.
So I have no idea, but the trailer,
because that is also Sony, right? Uncharted, and
it is,
and
and that's supposed to be coming.
You all aren't ready for Mark Wahlberg as Sully.
His mustache, he does get the mustache. I've seen the photo. God, what a bad casting choice that is. But anyways, that trailer's out there. I don't know if it's been scrubbed off the internet or anything, but I glimpsed at it because I was curious, and I was like, oh man, that's a real thing. So I'm excited for it, and I want to see the good quality version, and hopefully in 45 minutes or half an hour, whatever it is, Sony goes, hey, theater owners, the movies are back. I know we're forcing you all to come to Las Vegas with the Delta variant, in full effect, and Las Vegas being a hotbed.
But we have a House of Gucci elevator that you can get into.
Yeah. The best part of CinemaCon, you see, there's a lot of marketing shit, and like there's a whole convention of just. I really do want to go one year, and we got rejected once because I did try to apply for us because I'm like, fuck it, we'll go to Vegas for a weekend and go to CinemaCon because like I'm fast. We've talked about, if you're a new listener, Eric and I frequently talk about the experience of going to the movies, and projection and sound and seating and proper masking, and like why it's not special anymore, or why it is special, or why you want to watch something at home, or why you should go to the theater. And like we're obsessed with the theatrical experience versus at home. And cinemas, I worked at one, it's my favorite place in the world, really. I'm just fascinated. Like there's a whole like theater owner side of things where you get to see like new soda machines and new popcorn machines and stuff.
But it also, it's also just a great kind of like tease of what's to come within the year, right? Because it
was always like Comic-Con on. Yeah. It always felt like Comic-Con without the, the crazy amounts of people
and probably like bad BO. Like it probably smells good.
Yeah.
There.
I mean,
but better than Comic-Con. I mean, you've been to Comic-Con, so
I have. It didn't smell. The smell thing is, I think, just a joke people go forward with. But like,
bathe people. Don't listen to celebrities.
If you don't like crowds, and if you're anxious, like, and claustrophobic, like, there's so many people at Comic-Con, especially now. Comic-Con sounds like I can't believe going to a convention anytime soon. Sounds wild.
Well, even a festival, right? Like, like I mean, thinking about sort of TIFF reintegrating the in-person experience to a certain degree, and with TIFF announcing today that it's going to be mandatory that either you have a COVID test 48 hours before entering the theater, or have your information on hand that you've documents that prove that you've been double vaxxed, which is good. I think that's TIFF needs to do this, and it's a great way to reassure people that are going to be sitting in a theater for an hour to 2 hours, maybe 3. Even their Drive My Car is a film that's 3 hours long, and if people want to go and see that, like, you got to think like there's got to be a bit of an anxiety there. So I think that this is really good on TIFF's part in terms of the health and safety aspect being reinforced.
And you're seeing a lot of places do that, at least here in Toronto and throughout the world, really, like saying, on vaccine passports, essentially saying like get vaxxed or prove that you're good, because we got to start doing this shit just to kind of make sure we don't go into another fucking bleak fall and winter, right? So
yeah, because with the Delta variant, being an issue, I think that this is the best approach in order to keep things open and be responsible, and also to be considerate of other people, because just because people are getting vaccinated doesn't mean that everybody is. And that the other important thing to always consider, is that COVID's not going to go away. It's always going to be here. It's like the flu. It's not going to just disappear now that everybody's gotten the vaccine.
Well, I think that's what's interesting about CinemaCon happening right now too, and then theaters being, open and people fighting for theatrical only movies when it's looking like, maybe the best bet is to, keep putting things at home for the next little while.
Which the exhibitors don't want, because they
don't.
They want to make money or recoup the costs of the time lost, right? And we were even talking about this on the GO train ride into Toronto, that like looking at box office numbers now that theaters have reopened, and talking about like, okay, Reminiscence had a very poor showing in only making about over 200 or $2 million, right? 200 that would be amazing. $200. Hugh Jackman's entire family went and nobody else, but $2 million. And like, yeah, I don't think that film would have done well if it was in the before times anyways. And if it was released around the same time, it probably would have made like maybe $10 million at the most. But I almost feel like you still need to rate this on a curve. And yeah, you can talk about the success of Free Guy doing well over an extended period of time and kind of making its way to $100 million over, a few weeks. But you still have to think, okay, well, it's almost unfair to sort of, give some of these movies the box office bomb title or the buffo title just based on that.
I don't think anything coming out right now you can really do that to.
Yeah.
And like, especially the stuff that's available on streaming. And
like, I'm sure Shang-Chi will do well, and I hope that it, like, personally,
what's a success for it? Because we were talking, and other people have said if it gets close to Ant-Man's numbers, then it's a huge success.
Yeah. I agree with that. Or like, even if it's making the same kind of money in terms of consistent numbers, the way that Free Guy is, like, I think that will be a success. If it's, because at this point, what movies are looking for is repeat business, right? That people will come to the theaters and then more people will come and see it afterwards, and it'll be consistent through the weeks, where box office before was all about that first weekend. Okay,
but I think you're still seeing that first weekend, because the streaming stuff, especially, it's the people who want to see it in a theater go see it the first weekend, and then you just see boom.
Well, I mean, a movie that's been sort of talked about like that is The Suicide Squad, right? Where like,
and Black Widow too.
Yeah, right? And where you think that like those two movies are almost fail-safe box office successes based on, being comic book adaptations and
the filmmakers.
Yeah, and big name stars and things like that, but they're not doing well. And I feel both of those movies also, again, maybe should have been graded with a curve a little bit because of the day and date releases of both, Disney Plus Premium and then HBO Max in the US.
I really think that, the people who are seeing it the opening weekend are the people who want to see it in a theater, and the people who are waiting are the people who are watching it at home. It's like it's just, to me, that makes sense. So I don't get why people are surprised by that. Like, it's interesting, but I agree with you that we can't really judge anything right now. We either need to learn a new way of what is success in the day and date world, or it seems like everything's going to the 45-day, streaming window, which makes sense to me, because I feel like after the first 2-3 weekends, like, movies completely drop off anyway. Like,
it's very rare to have one of those sleeper hits now.
Yeah.
Like, even in the before times, like, there are movies that are successes over time that do well, like, like the films that you think of that come to mind is something, even though it's not a great movie or anything, but like My Big Fat Greek Wedding was a film where I think almost every studio, whether it be independent or major, looks at that and they're looking to find that movie that has legs,
cheap and will continue to
that has legs that can go on for
Yeah.
months and months and months. And not everything is also going to be Titanic in that version of where like it was just
I just don't think that exists
gate.
anymore.
No, it doesn't.
Really. Like, and that's why the 45-day thing, like, I think it could be even shorter than that, but 45 seems realistic, like just over a month. You have a month to make make money on a movie in a cinema, and then it's on streaming services. And like, I think that's fair. And like, I agree that there should be an exclusive window. I'm not against day and date releases, but I see the argument of being like, hey, we still need some sort of exclusive window in cinemas, or else you'll completely, take them at the knee. Like, you'll completely just buckle them if you just say every movie's available at home. And then you're just going to see, downsizing and bankruptcies and things like that. Like, people will still go to the movies, but it's just not going to be how we view it right now. So if you want to keep what we have right now, which obviously theater owners do, CinemaCon's happening right now, you still need that exclusive window. And I feel like the control has been sort of taken back from theater owners to the distributors. And like, it's just interesting. Like, they're the ones setting the terms now, but like, it's almost like a union negotiation, and each one of these deals have been separate, but it seems like what they've, it used to be 90 days, wasn't it? 3 months. Like, it was 3 months in theaters, and now you split that in half. And I could see that being split in half again eventually to be 3 weeks, 21 days, or 2 weeks, 14 days, which is what I've always said. Like, I think a 2 week, maybe 3 week, because you give it 2 weekends to drop off. And if you haven't seen it in those 2 weekends, you'll probably be watching it at home. So like, you give people that option. And then it feels like, I mean, 45 days still seems like a long enough time where if you go, do I want to wait over a month to see a new movie? If you really want to see that movie, you're probably going to go see it in a theater if it's safe.
Or if you feel safe to do so.
If
like,
you feel, yes, that's what I mean. Like, if you feel safe to do so. If it's 3 weeks or 2 weeks, then you're getting more and more people going, I could wait 2 weeks. I don't necessarily need to go. I think that like month is that if you really want to see something and you don't want to be spoiled, or you just can't wait that long, like that month, 3 weeks to a month might be too long to wait. So you'll go to the movie theater, but I don't know what that sweet spot is. And right now they're going to try out the 45-day thing. I think day and date stuff will go away when everything goes back to normal.
Well, next year will be very interesting on sort of the part of, like, say, Warner Brothers, where
well,
like,
they've already announced 45 days, right? With all
yeah,
this
and,
stuff.
but what I mean is that it won't be day and date with
Yeah.
HBO Max.
So you mean by their box office and stuff?
Well,
compared to
box
the stuff
office,
that
and
came out?
and I also think mainstream audiences, because again, we have to also consider that we live in this bubble, this film Twitter
Right.
bubble, where we're always following this or aware of this,
Where
and
most people just don't.
yeah, so like, people in the US are going to be thinking to themselves next year, like when the Batman comes out, oh, I'll just watch it on HBO Max because it'll be available for, a month or so on HBO Max, and then they'll be disappointed or feel that they're ripped off in some way because it's only going to be in theaters now, where then they'll also be confused because they'll think, oh, well, last year everything that I
But
wanted
you
to
hope
see,
that's the COVID thing. People understand that shit. But I mean,
but they
it
don't
is harder
always,
to
though.
take. No, it is harder to take something away from people when you've already given it to them.
Exactly.
Right. And then does that, hurt HBO Max? Because if you take all that stuff away, there's probably tons of people who subscribe to HBO Max just for that. And now we're going, okay, great. I can watch Succession, or I can watch, The Last of Us Part 2,
Or
or
Harvey
The Last of Us
Birdman,
HBO.
attorney at law.
Sure. Yeah, we did do that a little bit, but it's fascinating, and CinemaCon has always been fascinating. And I love the business of cinemas, and I want them to succeed, but I want it to still be like, I want them to care about,
the
I want,
quality of the
yeah,
presentation and the experience overall,
which I'm
and
sure
not,
there are a ton of theaters that do, but
yeah,
here
but
in,
there's a lot of theater, like we've talked about this before. You can go back and
yeah,
listen to more
many
recent
different
podcasts,
drafts.
but we've been critical on places like Cineplex because it has a monopoly basically in Canada, and there's not many options. We have talked about Landmark, but Landmark, for the most part, is a Western Canada sort of alternative. And yes, there are landmarks in the suburbs in the greater GTA and around the
Only a
rest of
few though,
Canada.
yeah.
Yeah, but there's not that many. And so I think having healthy competition is so
Makes
important,
everyone better, yeah.
because like, you look at Cineplex now, and Cineplex, has spread itself so thin with, restaurants and gaming and, putting its money elsewhere that it's lost sight in what is important and what is the basis of its
Well, they tried to
business
sell,
model.
so they wanted to get out of it
Yeah.
in entirety, right? They tried to sell to a European country, and now they're being sued for all of that. So, or no, the other company wanted to back out, and they're suing them, right? Like, I don't know, it's wild,
Some
but
legality.
yeah, CinemaCon. We'll see if the Spider-Man trailer drops. Eric, the Eternals. Speaking in the MCU, we reviewed Shang-Chi. Guys, go check that out. We just talked about Spider-Man trailer leaking. The final Eternals trailer dropped. Eric, did this change your opinion? I know we were both kind of excited for this because Chloe Zhao is directing. There's all that people have joked about that, she shot on location. It's not all on a green screen or a sound
Kevin
stage
Feige
and
finally
things like
realized that you could go
That-
outside,
Yeah,
or there is
yeah.
an outside.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts on this final trailer? We got a little bit more story, we got a little bit more of the action,
And also
the
connections to
characters.
the MCU with
Yeah.
references to Thanos and sort of like the idea, like that's been the sort of the main narrative with the Eternals being a group of otherworldly gods, celestial beings that have been around on Earth for centuries, and the question
Why
is,
didn't
like,
they
why
get
didn't they get
involved?
involved with not only Thanos but other sort of doomsday-esque plots from supervillains in the past. And in the trailer, I'm sure they'll go into specifics more so in the movie, that they're not allowed to get involved in any way. They're just simply
Yeah. Do you
watchers in
think
the way that Jeffrey Wright is. And I think maybe
Uatu,
Jeffrey Wright's character may make an appearance or might be
maybe he's an
referenced,
Eternal? Yeah.
because it feels like that character is referencing what the Eternals are saying in the trailer, what he says at the beginning of the episodes
But
of
he's
What If.
more of a multiverse where they're on one Earth, right?
Right.
Or one universe.
But it's still the same kind of idea where it's like, I can only watch.
I can't interfere. Yeah.
I have to be a spectator.
I like that idea, and I'm wondering if we'll see events in the MCU, whether one character being in New York during the first Avengers movie, or someone during the Thanos thing watching something on TV, or different events in the MCU, like and explanations of them maybe wanting to get involved and then not ultimately getting involved, or maybe secretly were involved throughout many things in history, which it seems like might be the case as well, right? Even if they weren't supposed to be involved, and maybe that's why someone's mad at them. I don't know.
Which I'm also a little nervous with, because I mean, we talked about Shang-Chi and how there are some things it does a pretty good job. Like, there are some things though that when it comes to retconning, I get a little bit nervous with that stuff. It works when it comes to the idea of time travel, but I think when you're trying to fit in new characters that might
that
not
have been there the whole time, that
considered
probably,
beforehand, and you're putting them in sort of like, okay, they've always been around, and how do you do that with sort of revisiting certain moments within the MCU? I just don't want it to feel shoehorned in, and I still think that the main selling point of Eternals is Chloe Zhao. I think that is especially her coming off of The Rider and Nomadland and now doing this. That is like my selling point for
absolutely. And they finally threw Academy Award winner Chloe Zhao on the trailer and stuff like that. So I was thrilled with that, and it looks gorgeous. Like, again, we poke fun at you're allowed to shoot and on location on an MCU movie.
You can go outside. You don't have to stay in that same Atlanta-based studio that every Marvel movie shoots in. The other thing I'd like to talk about that's not to do with the trailer, but we've been also talking about Marvel not taking risks with the posters and kind of creating the same like floating head montages for their final posters. I didn't love the posters for Eternals, because the Eternals poster to me just looks like Eternals on the M. Night Shyamalan Old Beach.
Sure.
I do appreciate that it isn't just floating heads.
Yeah, they're doing at least something different than what they've been doing since Iron Man, which I remember working at the cinemas when the Iron Man poster, and you have the villain, and you have the supporting characters, you have the city that they're in, and you have the main characters.
And it's a collage, right? Because it's all going
Yeah.
down, and it's strange because I don't even think that's necessarily a Marvel thing. I think that was because when the Marvel movies were being released through Paramount, I remember Paramount was doing that a lot. Like they even did that with one of the posters for Star Trek, and it kind of just carried through.
And it just kind of stayed with them, and they still to this day, like the Shang-Chi trailer or a poster, and looks similar to like what they did with Iron Man back in the day. And
just thinking like companies like Phantom City Creative or Midnight Marauders, like they're there, like
and they use them from time to time. It's just like they don't. Not very often you get those groups or those artists to do like the main poster for a movie. It's still marketing material, so they still need to, and there's probably a lot of politics in it too, where contracts with your stars and their agents, like there's probably things we don't even think about of like
how big like someone's head has to be on the
name
poster.
is, or their head. There probably is all of that bullshit, dude, where like I know it from the little time I worked in marketing. I didn't work specifically in movie marketing and stuff like that, but like there's so much random stuff like that. And when you're dealing with egos and like
not Kurt Russell though.
No, but which name comes first in a project, or who gets billed first, or who's the biggest on the poster, and stuff like that might come into play. So you kind of have to, not think artistically sometimes when you're making these things, and you just go, okay, we got to sell this movie. Where's it takes place? Who's the cool costume? Who are the movie stars in it? Throw it. So when someone's walking by in a movie theater, they go, "Oh, I like that guy," or "I like that woman."
Or I like that flying alien.
Yeah, exactly.
I love Alf.
I think that was really the only trailer that dropped this past week, unless I'm missing something. Was there anything else?
Well, there was the trailer. I don't know if you saw it for the new Denzel Washington movie with Michael B. Jordan, because I think the trailer premiered when you were at the cottage.
Oh, no, I didn't. Did you watch it?
I did, and it is hilariously awful.
A Journal for Jordan?
Yeah, and so Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan plays a soul. I think it's basically like it's setting it up as a tragedy that Michael B. Jordan plays a soldier sent to war, and he dies, and he leaves behind these journals for his wife and unborn child to have, and it kind of is like this back and forth between him writing his story and her reading them, but there's like this line at the beginning where him and this this young woman, they're starting their relationship, and she's like, "Oh, you smell like oregano," and it's just like, it's hilarious. And then at the end of the trailer, and I don't think I've ever heard this before, but when you see like the credits for the trailer, like it gives you like the name of the company, and like at the end of it, it has a voiceover, and it sounds like it's Denzel Washington, but it sounds like he recorded it on his phone last minute, and it's like, this movie is only playing in theaters this fall.
No, they got Denzel to do that?
Oh yeah, you need to watch it just for that. It's so bad.
Because we talk about a good movie trailer voiceover is great. Like,
it's not even a voiceover trailer. Like, it's literally like at the end of the trailer.
You don't have Denzel going, "A journal for Jordan."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it almost reminds you a little bit of like when they used to have at the end of trailers, like, this movie has been rated R.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that, but it's just Denzel Washington, and the voiceover quality sounds like, okay, like the morning that they were going to release the trailer online, it's like, Denzel. We didn't put only recordings in theaters. Can you get on your iPhone and record this and say
the
only
audio
in theaters this fall? And it's amazing. It's like the worst thing. I almost feel like you should watch it now, and then we should get
I'll try to find it. It's at the end of this trailer. I'll open it, and we can vamp as I open it, and hopefully this doesn't break anything.
But it is also a funny trailer, because like a lot of people were saying it reminds them of like a Hallmark movie, and it kind of does. And it's a shame, because like you think like the collaboration between Denzel Washington and Michael B. Jordan is something like, to really be
it's a Sony
for.
movie. I didn't even know. I did miss this. Oh yeah, it does look like a Hallmark movie. Oh no. I'm skimming through it.
Just watch the beginning part where she says that he smells like oregano, which I'm sure Michael B. Jordan does smell great, but it was just funny the way it just sort of plays out.
Okay, I'm watching it. They're at dinner. They're smooching. They're smooching. There's a really corny song in the background, like you taste like oregano.
Oh, it's even
because
worse.
they're probably at an Italian restaurant, Eric, and there's oregano. Oh god, this looks really bad. It's just like, I don't know. Americans love the army, eh? Um, Directed by Denzel.
Yep.
Ah, oh my god. See it in movie theaters exclusively this fall. Like, yeah, it does sound like he opened the audio app on his iPhone,
Or the
and
voice memo on his iPhone, yeah.
yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. Oh god, that's good. That's great. That
And I
is
love
really, really
Denzel, but
good.
it just is so it almost made me want to see the movie just based on that. It's like, it'd be amazing if that was in the film somewhere.
God, I hope so. Is he's not in the movie? He just directed
No, he just
it?
directed
Because
it, yeah.
I skimmed over it and I'm like, I didn't see him pop up, so I didn't realize that it was him. All right, that's
I almost wish
trailers.
more movies would have that as well. Like, could you imagine like Gerard Butler at the end of like some Millennium film being like, see this movie only in theaters?
Yes. Yeah.
Please.
On the news front, I'm just kind of skimming through and
Well, we
seeing if
got a
there's
lot
anything.
of Netflix dates in terms of the fall, their fall schedule, which I think is kind of interesting, that like, you know, from now until December and even into the early parts of 2022, you can kind of gauge what films are going to be directly day and date streaming, and then what films are only going to be playing, well, what films are going to play theatrically first for a couple of weeks and then
Yeah.
going to be available uh on Netflix. So something like Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog, which is playing at TIFF, is getting a November, late November theatrical release, and then at the beginning of December will be available on the streaming service.
Okay, cool. Love that. Love that. I'm just kind of skimming through what's happened. Yo, I see that what you're saying here. There's some images that came out from The Power of the Dog. Looking forward to reviewing that. Curb Your Enthusiasm season 11 got a premiere date. It's going to premiere in October, or at least it's premiering in October. I don't know if we have a specific date yet. And I saw a picture today of what's his name, who just had kind of some surgeries, and they didn't think
Richard
he would be
Lewis.
in. Richard Lewis, who
Yeah.
they didn't think was going to be in this season, but he tweeted out that he's going to be in at least one episode because he felt good enough. Larry David asked him if he felt okay enough to be in one episode, so that's great. I love Curb. I think I'm all caught up. Nevis and I think. Have you watched the more recent seasons of Curb?
I
Or
haven't
no?
watched it since the Seinfeld season.
Oh wow! So
I like
is
Curb
it
Your
just?
Enthusiasm. It's just
But I remember us having this discussion because I don't watch Seinfeld
I
and I've
love
never watched
Seinfeld,
Seinfeld,
and
but I love Curb, so I really feel like I probably should watch Seinfeld at some point. But
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, what you were mentioning, Netflix dropping some more release dates. So don't look back.
Or Don't Look Up.
Don't look up. Sorry, thank you, Eric. In theaters December 10th and on Netflix on Christmas Eve on December 24th. So I mean, I'm surprised that didn't show up at any festivals, but
It still could though. I think that like if it were to show up, given Adam McKay's track record, it would be AFI, which would be in
yeah, you're right.
November,
Yeah.
because Netflix is premiering the Lin-Manuel Miranda movie, which Tick Tick Boom,
Yeah.
which is going to be playing, which is I think the opening film of AFI. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Army of Thieves is coming out on
October
Halloween.
29th. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
like
though
we're
there's
near
really
Halloween.
no horror stuff in that film, apparently. Like, it's just a heist movie.
It's just a heist movie, right? So we got a prequel to
Although it
Zack
would be
Snyder
amazing if
movie
Zack
already.
Snyder re-edited as the Snyder cut of that version and put in like one sequence at the end that's a post-apocalyptic scene with all your favorite characters from Army of the Dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. I'm just skimming through and seeing what else. I
There
don't
wasn't a
know if
lot of big announcements in the last little while. I think
no,
it's
of
all
course.
kind of red.
Our 100th episode, no one wants to give us some good juicy news to talk about.
Well, we're
Like
also
I
kind
guess
of
the
on the
Spider-Man trailer.
yeah, and we're on the edge of, the summer movie season coming to a close, and the fall film festival season about to start. So you'll probably get a lot more from us in the weeks to come when it pertains to both news and reviews. Although, I mean, reviews, we've been very consistent, but like I find like you'll probably see you'll probably see some stuff more next week, like with the CinemaCon stuff. Like maybe there'll
Oh
be more
yeah.
announcements and things like
I mean,
that.
CinemaCon's
So
always weird because like some of the stuff is just for them. Like they show a lot of footage like they used to do at Hall H on top of trailers, right? So like the trailers we might get. But a lot of people skipped it this year too. Like Disney's not doing anything. I don't think Warner Brothers is. Maybe
no,
they
because
are,
I
but
mean Warner Brothers is doing their DCEU,
oh,
um
the dome.
the dome again. I think they're doing that
Yeah,
in October,
right.
which they'll
Which we'll probably
probably
get another Batman
and some
trailer. We'll
Flash
get
stuff and
yeah.
yeah, and then Disney, I mean, they basically can do their own thing as well,
Yeah.
and like you're even seeing that not with just CinemaCon, but Comic Con, where you're seeing a lot of these major studios are now kind of going away from you know these sort of cons as a platform to release their films. But then you're also seeing like smaller companies like Neon, which is a part of CinemaCon, and they're I think on the last day, and they
Yeah.
have like a major panel, which is kind of interesting.
But do you think that's because some of the bigger guys stepped away?
No, they had it before. They've had it.
Yeah.
They like.
Oh, they have. Yeah, they
Yeah,
have.
because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember the one year they showed Wild Rose
Right
after doing
after
their
we saw it.
panel.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like in a way the one sort of group of or grouping of studios that CinemaCon actually might help in the years to come are maybe these
The
smaller
smaller ones,
indie
yeah.
companies. So like if A24 and Neon and Sony Pictures Classics, kind of rallied together and were able to attend, and Focus Features, like if they were able to attend these festivals, and even smaller companies that we're not necessarily even thinking of, like I almost think that would be a benefit more to them in the coming years. Even if they don't have the bigger films, a lot of those smaller movies are those films that will carry out box office wise for longer. Like I think,
Mm-hmm.
If a Parasite does really well, like look at that movie in the before times, like that was, we were talking about like the film that has legs. Parasite was that movie that, after winning the Oscar and after being released on Blu-ray and 4K and available on VOD, was still playing in the theaters and playing to sold out crowds. So I almost feel like that's where exhibitors will really want, or should, if they're smart, be putting their bets on, because a lot of those
Yeah.
studios are more adamant of showing their films theatrically first.
Yeah. And speaking of that, Hotel Transylvania 4 moving to day and date, which we just joked about seeing the poster at Landmark last week.
Oh yeah.
Because we were like, oh, that probably should be one that goes day and date. And then of course, because we saw the Addams Family.
Yeah,
Poster.
and then
Was that it?
Yeah, no, that was it. And we also saw the poster for Antlers, which was dated
Right.
like back in for like
Yeah.
April of 2020 or something like that. So
Mhm.
we were joking, it's like that should be worth something on eBay.
Cocaine Bear started shooting, and
Which I'm weirdly excited about.
The incredible logo that's on the film slate. Chris Miller posted on his Instagram. Chris Miller of Phil Lord and Chris Miller, because I guess they're producing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. The Elizabeth Banks directing. So it's perfect for our kind of 80s inspired themed stuff that we're going for too. It looks like Black Canary movie is going to be coming out on HBO Max.
It's in
So
early development, though.
yeah,
Misha Green was talking about it recently, and she was saying that she's working with HBO Max. So it is, I guess, worth noting as well that when it comes to the DCEU stuff, they are really expanding the Gotham side of things. And I guess like Black Canary will be the closest thing to a continuation on the Birds of Prey storylines.
yeah,
And with Journey Smollett right now kind of having a bit of a bump with both Lovecraft Country and with Birds of Prey, it kind of makes sense to there was a Netflix film she was supposed to actually be in as well with Chris Hemsworth that I maybe got delayed till next year, which is like an Australian sort of thriller with a weird name. I think they changed it though. I'm gonna look it up. So I mean, I hope that it does well, but I mean, at the same time, I think the film that a lot of fans do want, if like not on HBO Max, obviously, but like another DCU theatrical release is either the Gotham City Sirens or
yeah,
the Poison Ivy Harley Quinn team up.
yeah. Because we are getting that Green Lantern series on HBO Max, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I loved Birds of Prey. I even talked about on our Suicide Squad review that it was a toss up for me of what one I liked more. But so I'm glad that they're kind of continuing that. I would love the Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, Gotham City Sirens kind of thing because I do think that Margot Robbie crushes it in that role, and I think they should continue doing stuff with her. But it's just DC's in an interesting spot where they're just kind of doing whatever, and I'm kind of open to it. I'm totally fine with it. Just let people make cool movies and deal with the continuity later if you really want things to tie in with one.
Oh, this is really
like,
interesting. So the Journey Smollett film with Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller is called Escape from Spiderhead, and the
right,
director is Joseph Kaczynski. So I wonder if
right,
the delay, because
of
it
Top Gun.
is because of Top Gun.
But I guess maybe post-production stuff.
Well, it says
But
it's in post production, but it's also on
right,
that Netflix video they released at the beginning of the year and saying like all the films that they have coming out
the
in
logos and
2001.
stuff, yeah,
Yeah.
that they have.
So maybe they're
2001.
or 2001 20 years ago. It was supposed to come out 20 years ago. No, for 2021. And yeah, so maybe that is because he maybe wanted Top Gun to come out first. I don't know.
Yeah. Dune is 2 hours and 35 minutes confirmed.
Which is actually like, even though that's still long, that's shorter than I thought it would be. I thought it was
Okay.
going to be nearly 3 hours, like 3 hours on the dot, or even maybe
Yeah.
over 3 hours. Because for those who haven't read Frank Herbert's book, it is a tomb of a
And he
novel.
is splitting it up into 2 parts.
Well, he
right?
even said that recently he wanted to
Do a
do
third
Dune
part, too.
Messiah, which is like
in itself gigantic or what?
well, no, it's bizarre. Like
Or-
that is truly
oh,
the most
yeah.
bizarre book of all of Frank Herbert's writing. And I think also we
Okay.
should take a moment to reveal that Untitled Movie Podcast is actually Denis Villeneuve's Twitter account.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It's been this whole show has been a ruse the whole time.
Yeah. I hope it's Dennis Villanueva.
I did laugh. I don't know if you saw, there is a fake account now that is like Denis Villeneuve's
burner account.
and it has just like a fake mustache on Denis Villeneuve.
Incredible. People are amazing. Yeah. I really want to know, like, he was film crit Hulk all the whole time. Like something like that. It was just like, oh man, how would we have ever guessed? I'm sure it's just some egg account where
Yeah.
like some spam account. I hope it's something ridiculous and
Or it was
amazing.
Denis Villanueva.
Yeah. Oh man, that is great. That's rich. That is rich. I'm trying to think if there was anything else, Eric. I think that's pretty much it. When it comes to news this past week,
I've got some news for you. I renewed my my driver's license and health card, because
Okay.
they were both going to expire in October this year, because I've had my driver's
Incredible.
license for over 5 years, so I had
Right,
to
right.
renew that, and same with the health card. Spent $90 on that.
Mine's all expired too, but like
Adulting. I also
I think with the health card thing, you don't even have to do it right now because of everything. Like they'll just take an expired health card.
I got a question for you. Do you ever go back and watch something, specifically television, but even movies as well, and maybe you've seen it a bunch of times, or you know it well enough, so you're maybe not paying attention to what's going on necessarily in the plot, but you become distracted by what's in the background, especially if it's a show that is somewhat dated or of a different decade. I bring this up because so the other day I was looking after my dogs, and I threw on an old episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and like it's this emotional episode
I
where
saw some people tweeting today that like Sarah Michelle Gellar is as old as
Anthony
Anthony.
Stewart Head, who
Yeah.
now is probably best known for playing the former owner on Ted Lasso. There's the great dart scene. That's him.
Right, you brought that up.
Yeah.
You brought that up when we talked
Yeah,
about
and
Ted
that
Lasso.
is insane because like
Wait,
it's
did
also...
he look hella old or something?
No.
Is that what-
No. I mean, like he was 43 when the series started, around that age. But it's also weird when you go back and watch a show like that and you see like characters and the actors that are actually in their late teens, and you still think
Yeah.
that you're older than them or younger than
Yeah.
them. But there was a scene I was watching, and it's a scene. The context of the scene, or the setup of the scene, is that David Boreanaz's Angel character has been turned to the dark side, and they're fighting in a movie theater because
Okay.
she's just blown up this demon called the Judge, played by
Of
Brian
course,
Thompson.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah,
But no,
I've
but the
been
thing,
there, been
but
there.
so the fight is between these two, and it's at an AMC movie theater, and like it's kind of like a half-assed set of AMC. Like they
Okay.
have like this the
So they
AMC
built an AMC set.
yeah,
but,
or like
it's
the
not.
exterior in a mall, because it takes place
Right.
in a mall, but it's a mall movie theater. But like you can tell it's not a real movie theater, or like it's not a real mall, like it's just a facade.
Yeah.
But they also put up posters, and like it's
Okay.
very telling of the period, and the two posters. I kept staring at the fucking posters because it was falling.
I always do that whenever. Is
Yeah.
this your question? Is that yes?
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
Because
yeah.
it was Fallen with Denzel Washington, which a lot of people don't really remember. It's basically like a body swapping horror movie with a serial killer going from one body to another, and Denzel Washington's detective having to stop him. And then the other movie, I don't know if you remember as a kid watching it, is Quest for Camelot, with the two, like the dragons with the two heads.
Okay.
And I just kept staring at these posters, and I just couldn't not, like, I didn't care about anything else. I was just like, because it is a Warner Brothers production, and I was like, these are the two
Sure.
posters you're
I
using
do know
for this
Quest for
show?
Camelot.
Yeah.
I do know Quest for Camelot. Yeah. Yes, I do that all the time. The most recent example I have, which is again very niche, at Landmark Cinemas. Do you remember when they before they did this big rebrand where they have the dun, 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 and they do?
Are you
like, "We're
talking about Takers?
Yes, Takers. it was the Takers poster. Always threw me off in that thing because you have like Indiana Jones, 5 or 4 or whatever the hell.
But then they
which
also
one
had the
is, like,
portrait of Dorian Gray, which was a
Yeah.
film that never got a theatrical release in North America.
It was so weird, dude. And they had that thing forever. Like up until like 2 years ago, it felt like they had it. And like I worked at I know I brought this up 3 times like on this show, but I worked at Cineplex in Oshawa when Takers came out in 2010. So I'm very familiar with the Takers poster.
We should do a review, like a retro review of Takers.
Maybe, sure. R.I.P. Paul Walker. So if people, to give context to people, so before a Landmark Cinemas showing here in Canada, for the longest time, what felt like from 2011 up until 2019, you got this like now feature presentation kind of thing. And they would go through this really badly animated, like, thing with movie posters in the background where it's just, a JPEG of a movie poster put into a box kind of thing. And they would go across, and it was all stuff from like 2010. and it was just
And it was the most
there.
random
And,
selection of movies.
Because Indiana Jones and
I think they had Red as well.
Skull. Yeah, Red was there. Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull was in there. The Takers poster, and it was the blue one because I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's where they're all wearing like fedoras,
suits and fedoras, and they're just they're chilling there. And
then the portrait of Dorian Gray with Ben Barnes. Type that in and look that up. And I always thought that was the weirdest one, but the Takers was always the funniest.
Yeah, and the Takers one is where my eye went to every time. I
think it was the only time that movie had eyes on it.
I know. And you can tell we're killing time because the CinemaCon panel started, and Brendan Davis posted get ready in all caps or whatever. So like, I really do feel like it's coming, Eric. And I'm like, do we keep procrastinating?
Yes.
Just
Matt.
see if it happens. So literally someone said, here goes Sony. Ladies and gentlemen, the presentation is about to begin. They say, do not record anything, yada, yada, yada. So classic like panel kind of thing. So you know what? Eric and I are just going to fucking kill time until, this trailer probably drops, and we'll be 2 hours and 30 minutes into this podcast. And here's the thing with a video podcast now too. If we just watch something, I should put it on the screen for everyone. We should, maybe one thing we start doing is like trailer, analysis or reactions for stuff. And we should do not just like the Marvel stuff and things like that, which everyone does. We should do it for like, Oscar movies and like reactions to
Dear Evan Hansen trailer reactions. The only thing I ask, and I don't mean this as a criticism to anybody that does it, because do your own thing. I get that you're promoting yourself as much as you're promoting what you're talking about. But the one thing I do not like, I'm not the biggest fan of when YouTubers or any kind of commentators put themselves on the thumbnail. I do not like that. You
don't want that?
It just bothers me because it's
too late. I've already taken 47 screenshots of you during this.
Great.
I'm just going to use it on everything.
I just don't like that because I feel like you're making it about you. And like, again, I understand that it's
weirdly, I know there's a reason for that, where it's like, analytics of like, when you put a thumbnail like that, more people click on it. So like, unfortunately, I think that's why a lot of people do it, because that just ended up being like the YouTube thing now. It's just like something so shocking happened that you need to, like, everyone does it. I'm not going to do it for our stuff. I'm just going to keep it the templated thing that I showed you that, you probably saw when you clicked on this video, if you're watching it on YouTube. But
if you're still watching,
we're gonna make this shit longer than most. But then Dennis Villeneuve's Dune. No, I don't know if we'll go 235. We might go 235. It's the 100th episode. Why not? I still got to post all this stuff. Here's a little inside baseball. We're pretty much done the show. We're just hanging out. This is almost like a post show now. We have lots of other podcasts, everyone, that if you're listening, and if you've listened this long, we got some reviews up. We got a Shang-Chi review up. We got a Paw Patrol review up. We got a Night House review up. We've got reviews up the wazoo. Anything you want, we probably have a review for it.
And we're going to have many, many more coming up with TIFF, because boy, oh boy, we already have some stuff kind of scheduled that we're going to be seeing in the couple coming of weeks. I don't know what I'm talking about now. I'm kind of just
TIFF's
really
gonna be cool,
but,
man.
Yeah.
We have some stuff that we've already confirmed that we will see before the festival, which is awesome. I mean, it looks like in that TIFF welcome email that we got, like the embargoes for the festival. Like, this is going to be weird. If we see things not through the fest, if we see them through the distributor, I assume the distributor sets the embargo dates. Like, because on the TIFF email we got, it says the embargo for all of the movies is the first public screening of a movie, I think. Like, you can't post anything or post a review.
But what happens if it's a film that plays at, like, say, Venice first?
That's what the email said. Like, if we watch it through the press thing, like their thing, it seems like that's what the situation is. But I'm not entirely sure about that. I'll always, basically side with what the distributor says. If they go, oh yeah, you can post your review here or whatever, then that should be fine. Do you actually think the Spider-Man trailer is going to drop? It has to, right?
I think that if if that leak didn't happen, maybe not, but because that it did, I think they'd be wise to just do it at this point.
Right.
You might as
Yeah,
well.
I think so. So I think the next half an hour of this video should just be me and you like kicking up, sitting here in silence.
You got any other food that you want to try for the first
I
time?
almost drank this Coke Zero. If people haven't had, now that we have a video podcast, I can actually have props and stuff where I can show people what I'm eating.
You can
and
be a real
drinking.
Gallagher.
I'm having this peach Aha, which is a soda water beverage.
No wonder you always have to go to the bathroom. Like you're drinking all the time.
Shout out to Tim Geddes, because we talked about this a little bit when he was on the episode. He is also a frequent. I love drinking things, liquids. Like
I love
it burns me
with liquids.
like this might be TMI for people. Maybe people there, if you're around at the 2 hour and 12 mark, you like listening to us.
If you are, I had to go to the
bathroom.
You're weird.
I had to go to the bathroom 3 times during Shang-Chi today, and I was so mad at myself, but I'm like, Matt, don't drink the liter of coffee before the movie. Don't drink another liter of water while you're drinking the movie. But the thing is, like, my mouth gets so dry sometimes, and I think it's my anxiety and shit, especially with, everything going on right now. And when I leave the house, like, I'm wearing a mask, things like that. When my mind is
extremely
occupied,
hot today as well. So.
when my mind is occupied, this shit doesn't bother me. But like when I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about things and I'm watching this movie and my mouth starts to get dry and I'm like have to constantly be drinking water because my mouth is dry, and then I have to go pee 8 million times, and I'm like sprinting to the bathroom because I don't want to miss anything. And I missed a cool scene with Tony Leung, and like it was so mad, man. I go to the bathroom so often, and like during Suicide Squad, I had to go a couple times too. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm like,
hear me out, Matt. Maybe we should patent the first ever
I
potty.
I can't do that. No,
potty,
I can't.
Potty seat,
pissy shitty,
pissy shitty seat theater experience, all in one dump and piss while watching a movie.
I mean, if I really want that, I should just be watching stuff at home, really, because you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Wait, you piss and shit on your seat?
I mean, you could watch a movie from your phone on the toilet.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like defecating on your
I just
couch.
Shit on the floor. Shit on the floor.
Matt, you live here.
God, are we really gonna get this or not? So some people are like, I've never heard of CinemaCon until a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, no. Every year, CinemaCon is like Comic-Con for
But again, that goes to show you that like we're in this bubble that we're not insiders or we know about it because we're obsessed with movies. But when you're talking to a mainstream moviegoer who's just interested in 1 or 2 movies a year, and maybe one of them is a Spider-Man film, this is big news to them, and this is a discovery. And yes, to us it's like, this is a yearly occurrence. Yeah, it's just that it's later this year than it's usually, right? Like, because it takes place in what, April, May, usually.
I think so. I think we should probably wrap. And then if a Spider-Man trailer drops, like I don't see the point of. I think it's funny that we're just sitting here waiting. But we're at the 2 hour 15 mark. I gotta still get everything up for everyone. I know people were very supportive today. Thank you everyone for listening and watching.
Watch as soon as we finish, the trailer comes up.
If that happens, if you're listening to this and there's no attachment to this episode or a second mini episode that just talks about the Spider-Man trailer, that means no Spider-Man trailer dropped. If a Spider-Man trailer dropped, we'll probably add a segment like as I'm editing this.
Maybe that'll be bonus for YouTube only.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a little mini YouTube video podcast that we won't necessarily post on podcast services as like an exclusive YouTube trailer reaction kind of thing. or analysis kind of thing. Because I think this is a great episode. I had so much fun reminiscing with you, Eric, talking about our careers and how we got to, 3 years of this show and 100 episodes and 250 plus reviews. And we talked about a lot of other fun stuff and food and garbage. But this Spider-Man trailer, I do have a feeling right when I hit stop, it's going to be like, here you go, everybody. But that'll just be perfect anyway. So we're going to wrap it up. I just want to say thank you to Eric. Thank you to everyone who's watched or now, who's listened or now is watching. If you've lasted this long,
and again,
you're amazing.
why?
I'm sure no one, if you're here, maybe you skipped to the end. If you watched the whole thing or listened to the whole thing, we really do appreciate it. I hope we brought you some sort of entertainment or insightfulness or I don't know, something to fall asleep to, which is probably the case. But just thank you, because 100 episodes, it might seem silly, but it's a big deal, even though it's just another episode of the show. Like, it's just, I think it was timed at the perfect time where it was literally on almost the dot. Our 3-year anniversary. We're leading into TIFF, which is our busiest time of the year. Shang-Chi dropped the embargo today as we're posting this episode. So
we're waiting for this stupid Spider-Man trailer.
Which we've already talked about on the show in a leaked kind of way. And I'm like, now do I title the episode Spider-Man trailer leak when by the time we post this, the trailer might actually be out. So we'll see. But thank you, everyone. If you like this and you've lasted this long, we have a couple other shows that I mentioned, Untitled Movie Reviews and Untitled Movie Conversations. You can get all of our shows right here on the Untitled YouTube channel. So please like, comment, share, subscribe. Go on all your friends' YouTube accounts, create multiple YouTube accounts, just hit subscribe, whatever.
Tell Denny Villeneuve to create a YouTube account.
And subscribe to us. Love to talk to him again. I'll compliment his shoes this time. It's something new. Like we said, it might not be perfect. We're still learning. Eric and I are new to this. I'm kind of like, I know sort of the ins and outs of it, but like, please be patient if things aren't like perfect. We're trying our best. And
if you are a true fan, you'll know that this is far from perfect. If you're new to this, buckle up.
It's just two best friends talking about movies for way too long on this show, and then we review them over on another channel, which you can get all those reviews right here on YouTube. You can get them on podcast services. Please go subscribe on both. We'd really, really appreciate it. Drop us a review if you would be so kind.
We're on we're audio, now video. Next, I'm hoping for an NFT.
Right in your brain. Oh, and we want to do an NFT. Yeah, for sure. I still don't know exactly what it is.
I don't either. I don't like, apparently it sells for money.
It's digital art, essentially. And you get a certificate that says not just art, but art is a big part of it. Anyways, thank you all for listening. Happy 100, Eric. I really love doing this with you, buddy. It's been amazing. And 10 years of friendship as well, which is, I think, another incredible milestone. So
we did it.
You did it. Thank you, everyone. As always, my name is Matt Rorabeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com. And you can follow me on all of those social medias at Matt Rorabeck.
And I'm Eric Marchen. You can find more of my video reviews at RogersTV.com/CinemaScene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
100%.